There's a quiet kind of suffering most people carry, one that doesn't scream but settles deep into your bones. You go through the motions, check the boxes, play your part. You smile when expected, meet deadlines, reply politely, but underneath it all, something feels off. Like you're watching your life happen instead of living it. Like you've become a background character in your own story. This isn't laziness or failure. It's a deeper disconnect, a misalignment between the life you're living and the life that could be yours. And no amount of productivity hacks or forced optimism will fix it, because what you're facing isn't a scheduling problem. It's a philosophical one. What if the real issue isn't that you're broken, but that you've forgotten who you are? That somewhere along the way, you traded depth for distraction, meaning for comfort, and truth for approval. Philosophy, real, raw, ancient philosophy, was never meant to be sterile or academic. It was born in times of war, exile, heartbreak, and hunger. It was made for moments like these, moments when your soul whispers, "There must be more than this," and you finally decide to listen. This video is a journey back to that voice. You'll walk with Marcus Aurelius as he teaches you how to endure the unbearable without losing your integrity. You'll confront the existential emptiness that creeps in when your life is ruled by routines instead of purpose. And you'll dive deep into the psychological shadows with Carl Jung, learning that sometimes the only way out is through the darkness you've been avoiding. The goal isn't to patch you up and send you back into the same life with a few new affirmations. It's to challenge everything that made you feel stuck in the first place. It's to strip away the noise until all that's left is the truth. That the life you want isn't out there waiting for you. It's hidden beneath everything you've been pretending to be. So this is your pause, your philosophical intervention. A quiet rebellion against numbness, against autopilot, against the pressure to keep faking it. Let this be the moment you stop running from the questions that scare you and start leaning into the answers that could finally set you free. We've all felt it. That strange sensation of time slipping by, days blending into weeks, weeks into months, until suddenly you're looking back, wondering where it all went. You get up in the morning, check your phone, brush your teeth, rush through breakfast, go to work, come home, maybe distract yourself with a bit of entertainment, then sleep, and repeat. At first, this pattern seems harmless. It's just life, right? But over time, something unsettling starts to grow in the background. A dull emptiness, a quiet voice asking, "Is this all there is?" That's the crisis of living on autopilot. So what exactly does living on autopilot mean? On the surface, it's a life ruled by routine. It's when you move through your day without conscious thought or deliberate choice, driven more by habit, external expectations, and societal scripts than by your own values or desires. You're not making decisions because you deeply want something, but because that's what you're supposed to do. You study what's practical, not what excites you. You work a job because it pays the bills, not because it fulfills you. You spend time with people out of obligation, not connection. You scroll endlessly on your phone, not because it brings joy, but because it fills the silence. Autopilot living doesn't necessarily mean you're lazy or unproductive. You might be incredibly busy, your calendar could be packed, you could be constantly doing, but not really being. That's the core of it. You're active, but not awake. There's no presence, no intentionality, no genuine engagement with your own life. You're moving, but not going anywhere that matters to you. And this kind of living comes at a high cost. Over time, the psychological toll becomes hard to ignore. There's a creeping sense of dissatisfaction, like something's missing, even if you can't quite name what. Anxiety builds, not always as a loud panic, but as a low, constant hum. It's the discomfort of being misaligned with yourself. It's the tension of living a life that looks fine on the outside, but feels hollow on the inside. The longer you stay in autopilot, the harder it becomes to remember who you really are beneath the layers of routine. You start questioning your purpose, your identity, and the meaning of everything you do. Regret begins to whisper, especially in moments of stillness, when the noise fades and you're left alone with your thoughts. People often describe this feeling as a midlife crisis, but the truth is, it's not about age, it's about awareness. That crisis can hit anyone, at any time, once they realize they've been asleep at the wheel. It's the moment you wake up in a life you don't recognize, built on choices you never consciously made. This is where existentialism steps in, not as a gloomy philosophy, but as a radical wake-up call. Existentialist thinkers like Jean-Paul Sartre, Martin Heidegger, and Albert Camus believe that the core of human existence lies in our freedom. Not just political freedom or freedom of movement, but a deeper, scarier kind, the freedom to choose what your life means. According to Sartre, existence precedes essence. This means you are not born with a predefined purpose or identity. You exist first, and then it's up to you to define who you are through your actions and choices. In other words, you're not a passenger, you're the one driving. But most people don't want that responsibility. It's terrifying. So instead, they hide in routines, social roles, distractions, anything to avoid confronting the raw freedom of shaping their own life. Martin Heidegger described this condition as falling into the they self, where you become just another member of the crowd, doing what they do, thinking what they think. You stop being yourself and start being a vague echo of the world around you. You exist, but not authentically. And this inauthentic existence leads to what Heidegger called inauthentic Dasein, a state of being where you're disconnected from your own potential. You're not choosing your path, you're drifting along one that's already been paved. Albert Camus, on the other hand, approached this crisis through the lens of absurdity. He saw the human condition as inherently absurd. We search for meaning in a universe that offers none by default. That realization, he argued, doesn't have to lead to despair. In fact, it can be the beginning of freedom. When you accept that life has no inherent meaning, you're no longer bound by false expectations or imposed purposes. You're free to create meaning for yourself. Camus famously wrote, "The only way to deal with an unfree world is to become so absolutely free that your very existence is an act of rebellion." In other words, living intentionally, on your own terms, is a form of resistance against the emptiness of autopilot living. The key point here is this: existentialism doesn't tell you what to do with your life. It doesn't hand you a checklist for happiness or a formula for success. Instead, it demands that you decide, that you confront the uncomfortable question, what do I want my life to mean? It challenges you to stop drifting, to take the wheel, and to start choosing deliberately, even if that choice is difficult, unconventional, or risky. But most of us don't start there. We often begin in the crisis. It's the numbness, the anxiety, the regret that forces us to pause. It's the sense that something's off, that we've lost touch with our inner compass. And that's okay. Sometimes it takes discomfort to push us into awareness. Sometimes the breakdown is the beginning of the breakthrough. So if you're feeling stuck, empty, or detached, know this: that feeling is not the end. It's a sign that you're waking up. It's the first crack in the shell of routine, and through that crack, something new can emerge. A life built with awareness, courage, and meaning. You don't have to keep living on autopilot. You don't have to keep saying yes to a life you never consciously chose. Existentialism reminds us that we always have a choice, even if the world tells us otherwise. Existentialism is often misunderstood. People hear the word and assume it's just another complicated, depressing philosophy, something reserved for university classrooms or melancholic intellectuals brooding in cafes. But at its core, existentialism is surprisingly simple and powerful. It begins with a basic truth. Life doesn't come with built-in meaning. There is no universal instruction manual for how to live, no cosmic blueprint laying out your purpose. You're born, you exist, and what you do with that existence is entirely up to you. That freedom is the foundation of existentialist thought, but it's also what makes it so uncomfortable. Because if there's no script, then you are the author. If there's no preordained meaning, then you must create your own. And that means everything. Your happiness, your values, your identity is ultimately your responsibility. Jean-Paul Sartre, one of the most prominent voices in existential philosophy, put it bluntly, man is condemned to be free. At first glance, that sounds contradictory. Isn't freedom a good thing? Isn't it something we fight for? But Sartre wasn't talking about political or social freedom. He meant something deeper, the existential reality that we are free whether we like it or not. We are condemned to freedom because there is no way to escape it. Even doing nothing, even refusing to choose, is itself a choice. You can't opt out of responsibility for your life. You can only delay it, and usually at the cost of your peace, your authenticity, and your potential. What Sartre is really pointing to is the burden of freedom. Because if you are truly free, then you can't blame anyone or anything else for the direction of your life. You can't say, it's just how I was raised, or that's what society expects, or I had no other option. Those things might influence you, yes, but they don't define you. You always retain the ability to choose, even if the choices are hard. And that realization can be terrifying. Most people don't want that kind of responsibility. It's far easier to follow a pre-made path, to let others decide what's valuable, to just do what everyone else is doing and hope it turns out okay. But existentialism rips that illusion away. It demands that you wake up and start choosing deliberately and courageously. This kind of thinking isn't just philosophical, it's deeply practical. Think about how often we give up our agency without realizing it. We take jobs we hate because we believe we have no choice. We stay in toxic relationships because starting over feels too hard. We suppress dreams and passions because they don't seem realistic. And every time we do that, we give up a little more of ourselves. Existentialism calls that out. It forces us to see how often we surrender our freedom in exchange for comfort or certainty. And it reminds us that those comforts come with a cost, the slow erosion of our sense of self. But here's where existentialism becomes empowering. That same realization that no one is coming to save you, that there's no guidebook, also means you are completely free to rewrite your story. You don't have to wait for permission. You don't have to follow anyone else's definition of success. You can wake up tomorrow and choose differently. You can realign your actions with your values. You can stop sleepwalking and start showing up as the person you actually want to be. That kind of freedom is rare, and it's easy to overlook in a world obsessed with formulas and quick fixes. But existentialism reminds you that the only real transformation comes from within, and it starts the moment you take full ownership of your life. This is where the concept of existential anxiety comes in, a core part of existential thought that's often misunderstood. Most of us try to avoid anxiety at all costs. We see it as a flaw, a weakness, something to fix or medicate away. But existentialists see anxiety differently. They see it as a signal, an internal alarm that something deeper is happening. Existential anxiety shows up when we realize the weight of our freedom, when we recognize that the life we're living doesn't reflect who we really are, when we feel the discomfort of being untrue to ourselves. This anxiety isn't there to destroy us, it's there to wake us up. It's the friction between who you are and who you could be. And if you learn to listen to it, it can be the beginning of something extraordinary. Instead of running from existential anxiety, we can lean into it. We can let it push us to ask better questions. Am I living in alignment with my values? Am I showing up for my life with intention? Am I making choices that matter, or just reacting out of fear or habit? These aren't comfortable questions, but they're the ones that lead to real change. Because when you start asking them honestly, you begin to see the ways in which you've been hiding from yourself. And in that awareness lies your opportunity to grow. Sartre's philosophy isn't meant to shame you or make you feel guilty about your life so far. It's an invitation, a bold, unapologetic invitation to start living on purpose, to stop blaming the past or the world or bad luck. To realize that no matter where you are or how lost you feel, you can start taking responsibility right now. You can choose your values, you can choose your relationships, you can choose your habits, your focus, your beliefs, and through those choices you create meaning. That's existentialism in action. It's not abstract, it's not theoretical, it's deeply human and intensely real. The philosophers we're talking about, Sartre, Camus, Heidegger, they weren't just talking about ideas. They were trying to answer the same questions we all wrestle with. Why am I here? What do I do with my life? How do I live in a way that matters? Their answers weren't always easy, and they weren't always optimistic. But they were honest. They looked directly at the raw, uncomfortable reality of being human, and they offered a path through it. A path built not on fantasy or hope, but on courage, choice, and authenticity. When you see a photo of Sartre standing in post-war Paris, cigarette in hand, eyes burning with intellectual fire, what you're really seeing is a man who dared to say, "You are responsible for your life, no one else." When you read Camus writing about the absurd, about finding joy in a meaningless universe, you're seeing a man who believed that even in the face of despair, rebellion was possible. That even if life is fleeting and fragile, it can still be lived beautifully, if we choose to live it that way. These ideas aren't just for the history books. They're for you, here and now. You don't have to be a philosopher to live with intention. You just have to decide that your life is worth showing up for. That your freedom, while terrifying, is also sacred. That your anxiety isn't a curse, it's a compass. And that no one can live your life but you. Visualize it. A person standing alone in a vast open space, the world stretching out in every direction. There's no map, no guide, just the horizon, the unknown, and the responsibility to take a step. That's what Sartre meant. That's what existentialism is. You are here, you are alive, and what you do with that is entirely up to you. There's a kind of quiet suffering that doesn't scream. It doesn't look like rock bottom, and it doesn't come with dramatic breakdowns. It's a subtle, creeping numbness, a sense that something is off, even if you can't quite explain what. You're functioning, you're doing the things you're supposed to be doing, but deep down it feels like you're not really there. This is one of the clearest signs that you're living on autopilot. Life moves around you and through you, but you're not fully awake inside it. Conversations feel shallow, days feel repetitive, and you catch yourself going through the motions without feeling genuinely connected to what you're doing. You smile, you nod, you participate, but something essential is missing. And the scariest part, you start to get used to it. Think about how often you find yourself forgetting what you just did. You walk into a room and forget why. You finish eating and don't even remember the taste of your food. You drive somewhere and arrive with no memory of the journey. These aren't just signs of distraction, they're signs of disconnection. You're there physically, but mentally and emotionally you're somewhere else. And that somewhere else is often a place of escape, not engagement. This detachment becomes your default, and slowly it spreads to everything. You stop noticing the color of the sky, the sound of your own laughter, the way your body feels when you stretch or breathe deeply. You lose touch with the richness of the present moment and life becomes a blur. Another powerful indicator that you're on autopilot is the way you treat your dreams, the things you've always wanted to do, the life you've imagined for yourself. When you're stuck in passive mode, those dreams get pushed aside. You tell yourself you'll get to them someday. You postpone the trip you always wanted to take. You delay working on that project that excites you. You wait for the perfect moment to make a change, one that never comes. Maybe you wanted to start a creative hobby, switch careers, move to a new city, start a business, learn a new language. Whatever it is, it lingers in the background like a ghost. And every time you ignore it, a piece of you fades just a little more. And over time, this becomes the norm, constantly putting off what really matters while convincing yourself you're just too busy or not ready yet. We often mask this with distractions. The easiest way to avoid our own thoughts is to drown them in noise. So we scroll and scroll and scroll. Social media becomes not just a habit, but an anesthetic. You pick up your phone without even thinking. You open one app, then another, 10 minutes pass, then 30, then an hour. And when you finally look up, you feel emptier than when you started. You didn't rest, you didn't connect, you didn't grow, you just escaped. Streaming platforms, mindless videos, endless content, it all offers a quick fix for discomfort, but it leaves you hollow. You're not consuming it because you love it. You're consuming it because it's easier than facing your own silence. But that silence is where your truth lives. Sometimes autopilot shows up as emotional numbness. You stop feeling joy the way you used to. The things that once excited you barely move the needle now. You laugh less, not because there's nothing funny, but because it takes more to pierce through the fog you're in. Even sadness can start to feel muted. It's not dramatic despair, just a low-grade discontent, like a gray filter over everything. You might tell yourself you're just tired, or that it's normal to feel this way, but deep down, you know this isn't how you're meant to live. You were meant to feel fully, to experience the highs and lows of life in their full spectrum. When that range collapses into monotony, something inside you begins to wilt. Pay attention to how you speak to yourself. Do you constantly rationalize your choices with phrases like, "It's not that bad," or "At least I have a job," or "Everyone else is doing the same thing"? These are coping mechanisms, ways to justify a life that no longer fits you. They're mental autopilot statements, scripts that keep you small, compliant, and comfortable. And they're dangerous, not because they're false, but because they're half true. They contain just enough truth to keep you stuck. But the other half, the part you're not admitting, is that you want more. You crave purpose, you crave depth, you crave freedom, and no amount of justification can silence that craving forever. Look at how you use your time. Are your days filled with intentional actions or just endless tasks that drain you? Do you end your day feeling fulfilled or just relieved that it's over? Are you creating something or just consuming what others have created? Do you spend more time reacting than initiating? Autopilot thrives on reactivity. You wake up and immediately check notifications. You respond to emails. You go to work and do what's asked. You come home and collapse into whatever media is most convenient. You follow a pattern that was handed to you, not one you designed. And even when you have a free moment, you don't use it to reflect or realign. You use it to escape. This isn't laziness, it's inertia. And the only way to break inertia is to recognize it. Ask yourself some hard questions and be brutally honest with your answers. When was the last time you felt truly alive? When was the last time you took a risk for something that mattered to you? When was the last time you said no to what was easy and yes to what was meaningful? Are you proud of how you're spending your days? Do your actions reflect your deepest values, or are they just keeping you afloat? What are you avoiding by staying busy? Who would you be if no one was watching, if you weren't trying to meet anyone's expectations? What would your life look like if you were living it on purpose? These questions can be uncomfortable, They're meant to be. They peel back the layers of distraction and busyness and show you what's underneath. They bring you face to face with your truth, not your public persona, not your survival mode, but your raw, unfiltered self. And that confrontation, while scary, is the first step toward change, because you can't fix what you won't face, and you won't face what you keep numbing. You might be thinking, I don't know how to live differently. That's okay, you don't need to have all the answers yet. What matters is that you start paying attention, that you stop pretending everything's fine when it isn't, that you get curious about your own life again. Awareness is the beginning of transformation, and once you see the patterns, you can start breaking them. You can take back control, one conscious choice at a time. You can begin to trade numbness for presence, routine for intention, and passive living for purposeful creation. The question is, are you willing to wake up? Most people live as if they have all the time in the world. We make plans for someday. We say we'll chase our dreams when we're more stable, more confident, more prepared. We delay hard conversations, meaningful adventures, and bold decisions because we believe tomorrow will be waiting for us. But death has a way of reminding us that tomorrow is never promised, that our time is not infinite, that life is not a rehearsal, and yet we carry on as if we're immortal. We avoid thinking about death because it makes us uncomfortable, but the truth is, remembering that we will die is one of the most powerful tools we have to truly start living. The Stoics had a phrase for this: Memento mori, remember that you must die. It wasn't meant to scare or depress people. It was a call to wake up, a reminder to live each day fully because each day could be your last. Seneca, one of the most practical of the Stoic philosophers, wrote extensively about this. He warned us not to waste time because it's the one thing we can never get back. You can earn more money, meet new people, gain new experiences, but once time has passed, it's gone forever. And the problem isn't that life is too short, Seneca argued. It's that we waste so much of it. We spend hours chasing things that don't matter, worrying about things we can't control, and ignoring the things that actually give life depth and meaning. Seneca wasn't just writing for philosophers or kings, he was writing for everyone, for anyone who's ever let years slip by in a haze of busyness and distraction. He said, "You act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire." Meaning we're terrified of the wrong things. We fear discomfort, failure, embarrassment while living as if death doesn't exist. But it does. And if you let that reality sink in, not in a morbid way, but in a focused, intentional way, it can completely transform how you live your life. Imagine waking up every day with the clear awareness that this might be your last. Would you waste your energy on petty arguments? Would you spend hours mindlessly scrolling on your phone? Would you put off that dream one more year? Or would you show up with urgency, with presence, with gratitude? Martin Heidegger, one of the central figures in existential philosophy, also believed that the awareness of death is essential to authentic living. He introduced the idea of being toward death, the concept that the only way to live authentically is to live with full awareness of our mortality. Most of us try to avoid this awareness. We distract ourselves with routines, with entertainment, with endless planning for the future. Heidegger called this inauthenticity, when we live as if we're just part of the crowd, detached from the raw reality of our own existence. But when we confront death, when we truly absorb the fact that we are finite beings, something changes. We begin to ask different questions. We begin to seek real answers. We stop postponing what matters and start acting from a place of truth. Being toward death is not about giving up or becoming morbid. It's about waking up. It's about living each moment with the understanding that it's fragile and irreplaceable. When you live with death in mind, you're more likely to speak honestly, to act with courage, to love more deeply, and to stop wasting time on things that don't matter. You stop pretending and you start becoming. Death awareness doesn't shrink your life, it sharpens it. It puts everything into focus. So let me ask you something directly. If you had 1 year left to live, how differently would you live it? If you knew, with certainty, that 365 days from now your time would be up, what would change? Would you still be doing the same job? Spending time with the same people? Living in the same place? Would you still be putting off the things you've been meaning to do for years? Would you still be afraid to take that risk, to start that project, to say how you really feel? Be honest with yourself, really sit with the question, because the uncomfortable truth is, that scenario isn't just hypothetical. You don't know how much time you have. None of us do. Most people don't start living until they get a wake-up call, until they lose someone they love, or face a diagnosis, or have a brush with death themselves. Only then does it hit them how short this ride really is, how quickly it can all be taken away, how much time they've already let slip by. But you don't need to wait for tragedy to wake you up. You can let philosophy do that for you. That's the gift of Memento Mori. It's a reminder baked into your daily life. This is it. This is your life. Don't sleep through it. You don't need to panic. You don't need to drop everything and move to a different continent. But you do need to start acting like your time matters, because it does. Every day you wake up is a day you'll never get back. Every conversation could be your last with that person. Every opportunity you ignore may never come again. And every moment you spend inauthentically trying to please others, following someone else's script, is a moment you steal from the life that could have been yours. Start small if you have to. Start by paying attention. Watch how you spend your time. Notice where you go numb. Ask yourself why you're avoiding certain choices. Be honest about the things you've been postponing for years. Call the people you've lost touch with. Tell the truth even if your voice shakes. Stop saying someday and start saying now. Living with death in mind is not about fear, it's about clarity. It's about living so fully, so courageously, that when your time comes, you can meet it without regret. The Stoics believe that death should be like a friend, always nearby, always reminding us to live with urgency and purpose. Camus echoed that in his own way. He said we must imagine Sisyphus happy, even as he pushed the boulder endlessly uphill. Why? Because even in a world without guaranteed meaning, we can still choose to live beautifully, defiantly, truthfully. And that's what this is really about. Death is not the end of the conversation, it's the beginning. It's the ultimate mirror. It reflects back the life you're living and asks, is this the life you want? If not, don't wait, change it. You owe it to yourself to stop living on autopilot. You owe it to yourself to live a life so real, so present, so intentional, that when your final day comes, you'll be able to look back and say, I didn't waste it. There's a strange kind of safety in doing what everyone else is doing. If you follow the rules, stick to the plan, blend in with the group, and never ask too many questions, life tends to go more smoothly, at least on the surface. You're less likely to be judged. You won't stand out too much. You won't ruffle feathers or make anyone uncomfortable. You'll be accepted, praised even. But beneath that comfort often lies a quiet kind of despair, a feeling that you've traded your real self for a mask, that you're living a life designed by someone else, your parents, your peers, your culture, your social media feed. This is the crisis of conformity, when your outer life might look fine to everyone else, but your inner life is starving. Søren Kierkegaard, the Danish philosopher and theologian, was one of the earliest thinkers to warn against this. He believed that the greatest danger to the individual wasn't failure or suffering, it was losing yourself in the crowd. He wrote that the crowd is untruth, meaning that when you start living based on what the collective expects from you, what's fashionable, what's proper, what's normal, you begin to abandon your own responsibility to become a true self. You outsource your decisions, you let public opinion take the wheel, and the terrifying thing is, you might not even notice it. Because the crowd doesn't demand that you betray yourself all at once. It's subtle. It happens in small, quiet compromises. You take the safe job instead of the one that excites you. You hold back your real opinions so you won't offend anyone. You wear clothes you don't even like, repeat phrases you don't believe, live a life that doesn't quite fit, but it feels easier than being different. Kierkegaard saw this as a spiritual sickness, not because it had anything to do with religion, but because it dulled the soul. It made people forget that they were unique, that they had a personal relationship with life, and that no one else could live their life for them. He believed that to truly be yourself, you have to stand alone at some point. You have to confront the anxiety that comes with not belonging, the discomfort of being misunderstood, and the responsibility of making your own choices. That kind of authenticity doesn't come cheaply. It costs you comfort, approval, and sometimes relationships. But in return, it gives you something far more valuable: your selfhood, your integrity, your inner peace. Friedrich Nietzsche, the German philosopher and provocateur, took this idea even further. He believed that most people live as herd animals, just going along with the crowd, obeying without thinking, and living by values they've inherited but never examined. For Nietzsche, the highest goal wasn't happiness or safety, it was becoming who you truly are. He called this the path of the Übermensch, not a superior race or superhuman, as it's often misunderstood, but an ideal individual who creates their own values and lives according to their own inner law. This isn't about selfishness, it's about self-creation. It's about breaking free from the programming of society and becoming the author of your own life. Nietzsche warned that blindly following morality, customs, or religion without questioning them turns people into shadows of themselves. They don't live, they obey, and in doing so, they miss the entire point of being human, the ability to choose, to question, to grow, and to create meaning from within. He admired those rare individuals who had the courage to break the mold, who chose truth over comfort, and who were willing to suffer in order to live honestly. Because for Nietzsche, suffering was not the enemy, it was the crucible where the self is forged. He said, "He who has a why to live for can bear almost anyhow. When you live authentically, you suffer for the right reasons. Not because you're lost or pretending, but because you're building something real." Living authentically then is not about being different just for the sake of it. It's not about rebellion or aesthetic or identity politics. It's about alignment. It's about getting brutally honest with yourself. What do I believe? What do I value? What kind of life do I actually want to live? And then living in accordance with those answers, even if the world doesn't approve. Authenticity isn't a single moment of clarity, it's a lifelong process. You have to keep choosing it over and over again in big decisions and small ones. You have to catch yourself when you start falling back into habits that aren't yours. You have to question the narratives you've inherited about success, about relationships, about what it means to be normal. The world will constantly try to pull you back into conformity. It will reward you for staying in line, for doing what's expected, for chasing what everyone else is chasing. But here's the truth. The life you're meant to live doesn't exist in the script that's been handed to you. It has to be written from scratch. And writing it is messy, uncomfortable, and often lonely. But the reward is freedom, not the kind of freedom that comes from breaking rules for fun, but the deeper kind that comes from knowing you're not faking it anymore, that you're not performing, that you've stopped living for applause and started living from your core. Choosing authenticity over conformity is a radical act in today's world. It means you might make less money, it means some people won't understand you, it means you'll have to make hard choices that go against the grain. But the trade-off is that you get to live a life that actually feels like yours. You get to wake up in the morning and not feel like an imposter in your own skin. You get to look in the mirror and see someone who's flawed, yes, but real, alive, awake. Ask yourself how much of your life is truly yours. How many of your opinions are your own? How many of your choices were made because you deeply wanted them, not because they were expected of you? Are you living for approval or for truth? Are you following a path because it feels right or because it feels familiar? These aren't easy questions, but they're necessary if you want to break free from the invisible grip of conformity. Don't wait for permission to be yourself. Don't wait for the world to be ready for who you are. Kierkegaard and Nietzsche didn't write for the masses. They wrote for individuals who were ready to think for themselves, for people brave enough to walk their own path, even when that path is hard, uncertain, and lonely. But remember this, authenticity might be uncomfortable, but it's never empty, because at the end of the day, you can fool the world, but you can't fool yourself. You know when you're living in alignment, and you know when you're not. So if there's a voice inside you that's been trying to speak, listen. If there's a version of you that you've buried to fit in, dig it up. If you've been playing a role for so long that you forgot who you were before the act began, go find that person again. Not for the world, for you. Because your life, your one and only life, deserves to be lived fully, honestly, and unapologetically. And no amount of approval will ever replace the quiet peace of knowing you stayed true to yourself. There's a common belief that happiness comes from comfort, ease, and the absence of struggle. We're told that if we can just eliminate stress, avoid conflict, and reach some peaceful, pain-free plateau, then we'll finally be happy. But real life rarely works that way. And more importantly, this idea is fundamentally flawed. It's not comfort that gives our lives meaning. It's not passive peace that fills us with purpose. It's struggle, purposeful, chosen, meaningful struggle. When you look back at the most important chapters of your life, the ones that shaped you, defined you, and taught you the most, you'll notice something. They weren't the easy ones. They were the ones you had to fight through, the ones that tested you, stretched you, forced you to grow. And that's what Viktor Frankl, the Austrian neurologist, psychiatrist, and Holocaust survivor, understood better than almost anyone. Frankl's philosophy, called logotherapy, was built on a very simple but powerful idea. The primary motivation in life is not pleasure, as Freud claimed, but meaning. He argued that human beings can endure almost anything, suffering, hardship, loss, if they believe that it matters. Frankl survived Auschwitz, one of the most horrific environments imaginable, and still came out with the belief that life can be meaningful even in the most desperate conditions. He observed that those who survived the camps weren't always the physically strongest, but often those who had something to live for. A person, a goal, a vision of the future. How do you know which struggles are meaningful and which ones are just pointless suffering? How do you distinguish between pain that's part of your growth and pain that's just keeping you stuck? The difference lies in purpose. A meaningful struggle is one that brings you closer to something you truly value. It's the hard work of building something that matters to you. It's the discomfort of pursuing your potential, even when it's terrifying. It's the emotional labor of healing from trauma, being honest in your relationships, or confronting your own limitations. These things are not easy, but they're worth it. They move you forward. They expand your life. On the other hand, meaningless struggle is what happens when you're stuck in cycles that go nowhere. It's working a job you hate just for the paycheck, when you know it's draining your soul. It's staying in toxic relationships because you're afraid to be alone. It's pretending to be someone you're not, day after day, because you fear rejection more than you value your authenticity. These kinds of struggles feel heavy, exhausting, and stagnant. They don't teach you anything. They don't connect you to your deeper self. They just wear you down. And the tragic thing is, people often choose these struggles because they seem safer. They're familiar, predictable. But that safety comes at the cost of your vitality, your creativity, and your sense of purpose. Frankl believed that responsibility was the gateway to meaning, that to live a meaningful life, you must take responsibility, not just for surviving, but for choosing your response to life's challenges. He called this the last of the human freedoms, the ability to choose your attitude in any given set of circumstances. Even in a concentration camp, stripped of everything, Frankl realized he could still control how he faced his suffering. That choice, how we respond to pain, is what makes us human. And in a world obsessed with avoiding difficulty, that's a radical idea. Most of us go to great lengths to dodge pain. We avoid hard conversations, we put off tough decisions, we distract ourselves from discomfort, but in doing so, we also avoid the very things that give life depth. So what if we flipped the mindset? What if we stopped asking, how can I avoid struggle? And started asking, what struggle is worth it? Instead of chasing comfort, what if we chased meaning? That doesn't mean we should intentionally suffer or seek out hardship for no reason. But it does mean we should stop being afraid of the hard path, especially when that path leads us towards something real. Want to build a creative life? You'll have to face self-doubt, criticism, and the fear of failure. Want to build meaningful relationships? You'll have to face vulnerability, conflict, and emotional honesty. Want to become who you were meant to be? You'll have to face the discomfort of leaving behind who you no longer are. That's not suffering for the sake of suffering. That's growing pains. That's transformation. There's dignity in struggle when it's aligned with your values. There's power in choosing the difficult road if it leads you to something that matters. And when you shift your mindset from avoiding pain to embracing meaningful challenges, everything changes. You start to see obstacles as invitations. You begin to see fear not as a warning sign, but as a signal that you're on the edge of something important. You stop asking, how do I make life easier? And start asking, how do I make it richer? That question leads to a deeper life, one that's not always pleasant, but always real. Too often we confuse pleasure with meaning. We think we'll be happy if we just get rid of all the stress and friction. But a life without friction is also a life without momentum. You can coast for a while, sure, but eventually you'll feel that creeping emptiness. Because deep down, you know you were made for more than comfort. You were made to grow, to serve, to create, to love. And all of those things require effort. They demand something from you. But what they give in return is so much greater than what they take. You don't need to suffer endlessly to live a meaningful life, but you do need to stop running from difficulty. You need to start choosing challenges that matter to you. Start looking at your current struggles. Which of them are building something? Which of them feel like sacrifices you're willing to make? Which of them feel connected to your purpose? And which ones are draining you without giving anything back? Be honest. Then start making changes. Start shifting your energy toward the struggles that move you forward. You don't have to be extraordinary. You just have to be willing. Willing to choose the meaningful fight over the easy exit. Willing to take responsibility when it would be easier to blame. Willing to suffer for the right reasons, because the alternative is to suffer for no reason at all. And that, as Frankl teaches us, is the real tragedy. The moment you start taking responsibility for your struggle, it begins to transform. It becomes sacred. It becomes a story you're proud of. It becomes the fire that forges who you are. You stop being a victim of life and start becoming a participant in it. And that's where meaning lives, not in avoiding the storm, but in learning to dance through it with purpose. That's where you reclaim your life, not when it's perfect, but when it's yours. Understanding the crisis of autopilot living and reflecting on your mortality or authenticity is powerful, but it doesn't change your life unless you act. Awareness is the spark, but action is the fire. If you want to snap out of autopilot, you need to do more than just think differently. You need to live differently. And that doesn't mean quitting your job tomorrow or moving to the mountains. It means starting small. It means becoming aware of the moments you're sleepwalking and making small, intentional decisions that slowly pull you back into presence. Big changes are overwhelming, but small steps taken consistently will change the course of your life without you even realizing it at first. One of the simplest and most effective tools for waking up is existential journaling. This isn't about keeping a record of what you ate or what errands you ran. This is about reflecting deeply on the questions that matter. Every morning or night, take 5 to 10 minutes and ask yourself, if today was my last day, what would I want to remember? What would I regret? Did I live in alignment with what I value? These aren't comfortable questions, but they cut through the noise. They force you to look at your actions and ask whether they truly reflect who you are and who you want to be. And over time, this practice will sharpen your awareness like a blade. You'll start noticing when you're acting out of fear or habit, and when you're acting from a place of intention. You'll feel the difference between a day that's truly lived and one that just passes you by. Don't underestimate the power of asking the same question every day. A question like, if today were my last, what would I do differently, has a way of pulling truth out of you. Not all at once, but gradually. The more you answer it, the more honest you become. You start seeing where you're stuck, where you're making excuses, and where you're living someone else's life instead of your own. It might start with small realizations, like how you spend your evenings, who you spend time with, or how you treat your body. But soon, those realizations build up into a deep internal shift. You begin living each day as a choice, not an obligation. Alongside journaling, one of the most immediate ways to disrupt autopilot is through intentional routine disruption. You don't have to change everything at once. In fact, you shouldn't. But you can begin by doing small things differently. Wake up 10 minutes earlier and sit in silence. Take a different route to work. Eat something you've never tried before. Start a conversation with someone you usually ignore. Turn off your phone for an hour and see how it feels. These changes might seem small or even silly, but that's the point. They break the pattern. Autopilot thrives on predictability. The moment you inject something new into your day, your mind wakes up. You become more alert, more engaged. You remember that you have agency, that your life isn't just happening to you, you are participating in it. You can take this even further by practicing what you might call mindful existential reminders. These are moments throughout the day when you pause and remind yourself that you are alive here, now, and that this moment will never come again. You don't need incense or chants or perfect silence. You just need to stop and breathe. Look around. Feel the weight of your body in the chair. Notice the light in the room. Acknowledge the fact that you are a conscious being experiencing this very moment of existence. You can even create little rituals. A deep breath before you open your inbox, a moment of stillness before you speak in a meeting, or a short sentence like, "This is not forever," whispered to yourself when you're frustrated, bored, or tempted to check out mentally. These reminders can be anchors, pulling you back into the present where your real life is happening. Another version of this is meditating on impermanence, not in a dark or heavy way, but in a clear and focused one. Take a few minutes each day to reflect on the fact that everything you're experiencing, this moment, your youth, your relationships, your challenges, is temporary. This isn't meant to scare you, it's meant to heighten your appreciation. When you know that nothing lasts, you stop taking it all for granted. You stop sleepwalking. You realize how precious even the mundane moments are, the way your coffee tastes, the sound of someone's laughter, the feeling of your feet on the ground. You start living with your eyes open, your heart open. The hardest part of all of this isn't starting, it's continuing. It's easy to wake up for a day, a week, maybe even a month, but then life pulls you back. Work piles up, obligations return, the glow of motivation fades. This is why you need to understand one more thing. Meaningful change is slow. It doesn't happen in a single lightning bolt of inspiration. It happens in the accumulation of consistent, small acts. You might not feel different after one journaling session, or one moment of stillness, or one new conversation. But stack those actions day after day, and something deep starts to shift. Your life begins to take a new shape, not because of one dramatic moment, but because of the quiet, repeated decision to live with intention. Patience is not passive. Patience is the discipline to keep showing up, even when it feels like nothing is happening. Think of it like planting seeds. You don't see growth right away, but that doesn't mean it isn't happening. Under the surface, things are changing. Your awareness is expanding. Your choices are getting clearer. Your values are becoming more visible. And one day, without even realizing it, you'll wake up and feel different. Not because your external life has radically changed, but because you're finally in it, fully, presently, courageously. You're no longer a bystander. You're no longer numbed out. You're alive. And maybe that's the real goal, not to fix everything, not to be perfect, but simply to be here, to live a life you're awake for. That's what snapping out of autopilot really means. Not that you never fall back asleep, but that you keep choosing to wake up every day, even when it's hard, even when it's boring, even when you're tired. You choose to show up for your life because it's the only one you get. And it deserves more than your automatic responses. It deserves your attention, your presence, your love. So start today. Write one honest sentence in a journal. Do one thing differently. Take one deep breath and feel what it means to be alive in this exact second. That's all it takes to begin. And once you begin, keep going, slowly, gently, but consistently. That's how you build a life worth living, not all at once, but one conscious moment at a time. There's one truth that sits quietly beneath everything we've explored in this video. Life is short, shorter than we think, shorter than we want it to be. And the most painful thing about that truth isn't death itself, it's how easily we forget it. We spend so much time distracted, anxious, waiting for the right moment to speak up, waiting for the perfect conditions to chase our dreams, waiting for clarity, confidence, permission. But the right moment never comes, not the way we imagine it. Life doesn't hand us a sign. It doesn't pause for us to catch up. It just moves, relentlessly, unapologetically. So if you're waiting for the right time, I'll tell you now, it doesn't exist. The only moment you have is the one in front of you right now, and if you don't use it, you'll lose it. This moment, this very second as you sit here listening, is the only thing that's real. The past is gone. The future is uncertain, but this right here is yours. The breath in your lungs, the thoughts in your head, the beating of your heart, that's your life. And it's happening whether you show up for it or not. So what will you do with it? Will you drift through it hoping things change on their own, or will you meet it head on with open eyes and a willing heart? Because no one else is coming to save you. No one is going to live your life for you, and no one can give you meaning. It's yours to create. That's not a burden. That's the greatest kind of freedom. This is the core of existentialism. Not despair, not hopelessness, but radical ownership. It says, yes, life is uncertain. Yes, death is inevitable. Yes, suffering is part of the deal. But so what? You're still here. You're still breathing. You still get to choose what your life means. And that choice, that tiny space between what happens and how you respond, is where all your power lives. Viktor Frankl knew this in the darkest of circumstances. Nietzsche shouted it through fire and fury. Kierkegaard wrestled with it in silence and solitude. Sartre lived it with relentless intensity. And Camus, despite all the absurdity, still chose rebellion, still chose to live. This isn't abstract theory. It's a way of being. It means choosing to live on purpose, even when the world tries to pull you into the comfort of autopilot. It means choosing truth, even when lies would be easier. It means choosing effort, even when laziness is more tempting. And it means choosing to love yourself, others, this strange, beautiful, terrifying life, even when it's messy, uncertain, and imperfect. Existentialism doesn't promise ease, it promises responsibility. But with that responsibility comes power. You don't have to be the victim of your past. You don't have to follow the path you didn't choose. You can rewrite your story. You can begin again today, now, right here. The world will try to convince you that you're small, that you should stay quiet, follow the rules, play it safe. But the truth is, you're more powerful than you think. Not because you can control everything, because you can't, but because you can choose how you meet what life gives you. You can choose to suffer for something meaningful. You can choose to stand apart from the crowd and live authentically. You can choose to take responsibility for your own becoming every single day. That's courage, existential courage. Not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward anyway. To show up fully, despite the uncertainty. To live deliberately in a world that would rather you remain asleep. So let this be your wake-up call. Let this be the moment you decide that your life matters too much to be lived passively. That you're no longer willing to let the days blur together. That you're done waiting. Waiting for confidence, waiting for motivation, waiting for the perfect time. The perfect time is a myth. All you have is now. All you've ever had is now. And the sooner you start treating this moment like the miracle it is, the sooner you'll start living the life you were meant to live. Not someday, not when it's easy, now. Start by making one decision today that reflects who you really are. Say the thing you've been afraid to say. Take the first step toward that dream you've buried. Stop apologizing for wanting more. Stop minimizing your pain. Stop hiding your truth. Start showing up, not as who you think you should be, but as who you are. And keep showing up, even when you stumble, even when no one else understands, even when it's hard. Because that's what living deliberately means. It's not glamorous, it's not always inspiring, but it's real, it's raw, it's yours. There's a line by Albert Camus that captures everything we've talked about in a single breath. He said, "In the depth of winter, I finally learned that within me there lay an invincible summer." That line isn't just poetry. It's a truth buried deep inside all of us. No matter how numb you felt, no matter how lost, how small, how disconnected, you still have that summer inside you. You still have light. You still have strength. You still have the ability to choose, to rise, to begin again. So don't waste another day. Don't waste another breath pretending this isn't your one and only life. It is. And it's too precious, too wild, too fleeting to be lived halfway. Wake up. Choose your life consciously. Live deliberately. Let that be your rebellion. Let that be your legacy. Let that be your freedom. There are moments in life when everything feels unbearably heavy. When you wake up and the weight of the day crashes down before you've even gotten out of bed. When the things that used to excite you now feel meaningless. When nothing feels worth the effort, and even joy, when it occasionally appears, feels distant, fleeting, fake. You may have a job, a roof over your head, even people around you, and still feel utterly hollow inside. The worst part is not even the sadness, it's the numbness, the quiet despair that comes when you've given up expecting things to get better. You move through life like a ghost, surviving but not really living. If you've ever felt this way, you're not alone, and you're not broken. This feeling, as painful as it is not new. Even the most powerful man in the world once struggled with it. Marcus Aurelius, yes, the Roman emperor, commander of legions, ruler of the greatest empire on earth, knew what it meant to be weighed down by life. Despite his unimaginable power, he wasn't immune to grief, loneliness, or existential fatigue. He lost children to illness. He led during times of war and plague. He was betrayed, pressured, exhausted. Yet instead of collapsing under it all, he turned inward, not to escape, but to understand. He wrote to himself, privately, in what would later become Meditations, a personal diary of raw philosophical reflection. These writings weren't meant to impress anyone. They were survival notes, reminders to stay grounded, to endure, to keep going with purpose, even when everything felt meaningless. What gave him this strength wasn't religious faith or blind optimism, or the illusion that things would get better if he just waited long enough. It was philosophy, specifically Stoicism. A system of thought forged by people who had seen the worst life had to offer and still believed in the power of the human spirit to rise above it. Stoicism teaches that while we can't control what happens to us, we can always control how we respond. That peace doesn't come from fixing the world, but from mastering the self. It doesn't deny pain, it teaches you how to carry it with dignity. It doesn't erase suffering, but it gives suffering a shape you can live with, maybe even grow from. It's about choosing strength over despair, clarity over chaos, action over helplessness. This video isn't about ancient history, it's about how that storm still rages today. It just takes different forms: depression, burnout, fear, emptiness. And Marcus's words, 2,000 years later, remain some of the clearest instructions we have on how to face that storm and come out stronger. Not happier in the naive sense, but resilient, centered, clear. The Stoic path isn't about escaping life, it's about engaging with it fully, without being crushed by it. There's a strange kind of suffering we bring on ourselves, not because of what happens to us, but because of the way we fight it. We replay events over and over in our minds, trying to rewrite the past. We argue with reality as if our frustration could somehow undo it. We say things like, "This isn't fair," or "It shouldn't have happened this way," or "Why me?" And though these thoughts feel justified in the moment, they do nothing but extend our pain. One of the first lessons Stoicism teaches us is this: pain is inevitable, but suffering, at least the kind we often feel, is something we create. It's not what happens that breaks us, it's our refusal to accept that it has happened. Marcus Aurelius saw this clearly. He wrote, "Reject your sense of injury, and the injury itself disappears." What he meant wasn't that we should pretend bad things don't hurt, or that we should numb ourselves to injustice or grief. He meant that so much of what we feel, rage, bitterness, resentment, shame, is not coming from the event itself. It's coming from our interpretation of the event. It's coming from the meaning we attach to it. You didn't just lose your job. You decided that this loss defines your worth. You weren't just rejected. You concluded that you're unlovable. The injury is real, but the suffering is magnified because we refuse to let go of the story we're telling about it. We suffer because we demand that reality be different than it is, and that demand is never satisfied. When something bad happens, we tense up. We mentally push back. We resist the facts. But facts are facts. Reality is what it is, and no amount of wishing or denial or complaining will change that. Stoicism isn't about being passive or indifferent. It's about clarity. When you stop resisting, you stop bleeding. Not because the wound isn't there, but because you're not digging into it anymore. Think about how much of your mental exhaustion comes not from your circumstances, but from fighting them. You hate your job, but you keep waking up every day cursing the alarm clock instead of making a plan to leave. You resent the person who hurt you, but every time you think about them, you hand them power over your peace. You're angry that life didn't turn out the way you expected, but expectations are just stories you wrote in your head. The truth is, the more you argue with what is, the more you lose. The only way to begin healing is to stop demanding that reality behave according to your script. This doesn't mean giving up. It means facing what's in front of you without flinching. Marcus wasn't telling us to become emotionless robots. He was telling us that peace comes when we stop clinging to how we think things should be and start responding to how things are. This shift is powerful. It means that you can begin to regain control, not by changing the external world, but by changing your stance toward it. You can stop seeing life as something that happens to you and start seeing it as something you can navigate with strength and wisdom. So how do we do that? How do we move from resistance to acceptance, especially when things genuinely hurt? First, we need to separate two things: what we can control and what we can't. This is the core of Stoicism. If you can control something, you act. If you can't, you let it go, not because you don't care, but because holding on is making you sick. Ask yourself right now, what am I resisting in my life? What fact am I refusing to accept? Is it a loss, a failure, a betrayal, a situation that feels unjust, a truth about yourself that you don't want to face? Write it down. Be honest. No one else has to see it. Just put the reality on paper. Then ask, can I control this? Can I change it, fix it, influence it? If the answer is yes, take one step toward doing so. Just one small, concrete action. Not a fantasy, not a wish, an actual step. If the answer is no, if it's something that already happened, something outside your influence, then stop giving it your energy. Stop reliving it. Stop feeding it with your attention. Let it be what it is. This is not easy, but it is simple, and that's why Stoicism endures. It strips away the noise. It tells you, focus on what's yours. Let the rest burn. Another practice that can help is what Marcus did. Write to yourself. Not in some perfect, filtered way, but raw, personal, unfiltered. Write down the thing that's hurting you, then respond to it from the perspective of a wiser, calmer version of yourself. What would that version say? Yes, this was painful. Yes, it was unfair, but it happened. And I'm still here. And I won't let it define me. This is how Marcus wrote. His meditations weren't essays. They were letters to himself, reminders, anchor points. You can do the same. It's easy to believe that acceptance is weakness, that to stop resisting is to lose. But in reality, acceptance is power. It means you are no longer at war with what already exists, and when the war ends, you have the energy to do something better, to build, to grow, to heal. Resisting reality drains you. Accepting it frees you. This doesn't mean your life will suddenly feel amazing, but it means the struggle becomes clearer, more honest. Instead of flailing in frustration, you gain focus. You stop wasting time fighting shadows and start walking a path forward. Stoicism doesn't promise a life without pain, but it does promise that you can suffer less and become stronger if you stop demanding that the world be something it isn't. So again, ask yourself, what am I resisting? What truth am I afraid to face? And what would happen if I simply allowed it to be true? Not agreed with it, not loved it, just allowed it. That's where Stoicism begins, and that's where healing begins. Not in denial, not in escape, but in the quiet, grounded acceptance of what is. Only from there can anything new grow. One of the greatest traps in life is spending all your time chasing things that will never satisfy you. Most people don't realize they're doing it until they've already burned years of their life in the wrong direction. You can climb the ladder of success only to find it's leaning against the wrong wall. You can earn the money, get the house, collect the compliments, and still feel empty inside. Why? Because the things you're chasing can't actually fill the hole you're trying to fill. Marcus Aurelius, who had more power, wealth, and prestige than almost anyone who's ever lived, knew this deeply. That's why he wrote, "Very little is needed for a happy life. It is all within yourself." Coming from a Roman emperor, that sentence hits differently. This was a man who had access to everything, and yet he realized none of it was the source of true peace. The Stoics made a clear distinction between what they called externals and internals. Externals are things like money, fame, social approval, beauty, status, success, possessions. These things aren't inherently bad, but they are beyond your full control. They can be taken away, they fluctuate, you can do everything right and still not have them. Internals, on the other hand, are things like your character, your choices, your mindset, your integrity. These are the things that are always within your grasp, no matter what's happening around you. And according to the Stoics, these are the only things that actually matter. When you base your happiness on externals, you're building your life on sand. You're making your peace of mind dependent on things you can't control, and that's a guarantee for suffering. Think about it. If your self-worth depends on how many people like you, then your entire emotional state is vulnerable to strangers. If your happiness depends on making a certain amount of money, then you're putting your peace in the hands of the market, your boss, the economy. If your identity is tied to how attractive you are, then time itself becomes your enemy. These values don't anchor you, they own you. They turn you into a slave to things outside of you, and sooner or later they betray you. You see this everywhere. The person who looks perfect on social media but is quietly battling anxiety and depression. The workaholic who hits every career milestone and still feels deeply unfulfilled. The influencer who spends their life chasing validation, terrified of losing relevance. The millionaire who keeps grinding for more, thinking the next goal will finally make him feel complete. These are not failures of success, they are failures of values. People chasing the wrong things, because they never stop to ask why. And the worst part is that society actively encourages this. From the time we're young, we're conditioned to measure our worth by external metrics, grades, trophies, followers, income, beauty. We're taught that being liked is more important than being honest, that being rich is more important than being kind, that being impressive is more important than being good. No one tells us that all of these shiny things are fragile and fleeting, that they'll never make you feel whole. Not in a lasting way. Marcus Aurelius was surrounded by luxury, but he spent his nights writing about discipline, humility, justice, and self-restraint. Because he knew the truth. The only real wealth is your character. Everything else is decoration. So what does it look like to value the right things? It means shifting your focus inward, not in a self-absorbed way, but in a grounded, disciplined way. It means measuring your life by your actions, not your outcomes, by your effort, not by applause. Did you act with honesty today? Did you keep your promises? Did you show up when it was hard? Did you hold your values even when no one was watching? These are the questions that matter, because they're the only ones you can answer fully. And when you start living this way, something strange happens. You begin to feel stable, not euphoric, not invincible, but calm, centered, unshakable. It's not that you stop caring about external things. You still need money to live. It's nice to be recognized. It feels good to be loved. But you stop depending on those things for your self-worth. You start to see them as bonuses, not foundations. And that shift changes everything. Suddenly, a setback doesn't destroy you. A rejection doesn't unravel your identity. A failure doesn't mean you're worthless. Because your worth was never built on those things in the first place. It was built on something deeper, something internal. So how do you start living this way, practically? First, become brutally honest about what you're actually valuing right now. Look at your behavior, not your beliefs. Where do you spend your time? What do you think about all day? What makes you feel good, and what makes you feel like a failure? Be honest. If you spend 5 hours a day on social media obsessing over likes and followers, you're valuing approval. If your mood rises and falls with your bank account, you're valuing money. If your sense of identity depends on what other people say about you, you're valuing reputation. There's no shame in this. We've all been conditioned this way, but you can't change what you don't admit. Next, start practicing the Stoic shift. When you catch yourself getting upset or anxious, ask, am I upset because I've done something wrong, or because something outside of me didn't go the way I wanted? If it's the latter, take a breath. Remind yourself, this isn't mine to control. What is mine is how I respond, how I carry myself, what I choose to do next. This simple shift done repeatedly can slowly rewire your entire sense of value. One helpful practice is to write down 3 internal wins at the end of each day. Not what you achieved, but how you acted. Did you stay calm in a situation that used to make you angry? Did you do the right thing when it would have been easier to lie? Did you keep going when you wanted to quit? These are the things that build character. These are the moments that shape who you are. And finally, surround yourself with reminders. The world will constantly try to sell you fake values. You need to build a fortress of real ones. Reread meditations. Put Stoic quotes where you can see them. Follow people who inspire your character, not just your ambition. Create an environment that nourishes the version of you that you actually want to become. Remember, a good life isn't about what you accumulate. It's about what you cultivate. The person you become matters more than the things you get. You can't control the economy, the algorithm, or the opinions of others, but you can control your effort, your honesty, your kindness, your discipline. These things are yours, and no one can take them from you, not even death. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, but what made him truly powerful wasn't his title, it was his clarity. He understood what was truly important, and he lived by it. That's the invitation of Stoicism. Not to be successful by the world's standards, but to become the kind of person who doesn't need success to feel whole. Because when you value the right things, you stop being a slave to the wrong ones. And in that space, you begin to feel something rare in this world, peace. Not the peace that comes from having everything go your way, but the peace that comes from knowing you'll be okay even when it doesn't. Your thoughts are not always telling you the truth. That's one of the most important things to realize if you want to break free from unhappiness. The mind can be a liar. It can convince you that you're worthless, that things will never get better, that you've already failed, that no one cares about you, that the worst-case scenario is just around the corner. And because these thoughts feel real, we believe them. But feelings are not facts. Just because something feels true doesn't mean it is. Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply. That's why he wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." In other words, the quality of your mind shapes the quality of your life. If you constantly feed your mind with bitterness, fear, and self-hate, then your entire experience will be filtered through that darkness. But if you train your mind, if you learn to step back, question, and reframe, then you begin to change the way you experience reality. Marcus wasn't saying this as some kind of motivational quote. He was speaking from his own struggle. He faced betrayal, disease, war, family tragedy, yet he kept coming back to his mind as the battlefield that mattered most. The outer world could fall apart, but he knew that his inner world was still his responsibility. That's what makes Stoicism so powerful. It gives you back control of your experience, even when you have no control over your circumstances. The practice that Marcus used over and over again was cognitive reframing. It's the art of looking at a situation from a different angle, not in a way that lies to yourself, but in a way that reveals something deeper and more empowering. When something bad happened, Marcus would write down his thoughts about it. Then he'd challenge those thoughts. He'd strip them down to their essence, remove the drama, and ask, is this actually as bad as it seems? Am I seeing this clearly? Is my reaction helping me or hurting me? In doing so, he was training his mind to stay calm, clear, and focused, not swept away by fear or emotion. Here's the thing. Your emotions are almost always preceded by a thought. You feel anxious because you told yourself something might go wrong. You feel ashamed because you decided you failed. You feel angry because you interpreted someone's words as an insult. But all of these are interpretations. The event itself is neutral. Your mind adds the meaning. And once you learn to question that meaning, you start to break the spell. Let's take an example. Say someone you care about stops responding to your messages. Your immediate thought might be, they're ignoring me. I must have done something wrong. They don't like me anymore. That thought triggers anxiety, shame, maybe even resentment. But what if you caught that thought and challenged it? What if you asked, do I know for sure that this is about me? Could there be another explanation? Even if it is about me, is it something I can control? By doing this, you're not pretending everything is fine. You're simply refusing to let your mind run wild with assumptions. You're creating space between the stimulus and your response. That space is freedom. The Stoics called this reasoned choice, the ability to pause and think before reacting. It's a kind of mental martial art. Instead of letting your mind hit you with a punch, you learn to dodge, block, redirect. Over time, this becomes second nature. You stop being a passive victim of your thoughts and start becoming the observer of them. And when you observe your thoughts without immediately identifying with them, you gain power. You can decide which thoughts deserve your attention and which ones are just noise. This doesn't mean you'll never have negative thoughts again. You will. Everyone does. Even Marcus Aurelius, writing in his tent during war, filled pages with self-doubt, frustration, and fear. The point isn't to get rid of those thoughts, it's to learn how to handle them. When they show up, you say, there you are again. And instead of spiraling, you sit with them, you question them, you write them down. That's where thought journaling comes in. It's one of the most powerful tools you can use to reframe your mind. And it's simple. All you need is a pen and paper, or even a notes app on your phone. Here's how it works. Start by writing down a negative thought that's been bothering you. Be honest, no filter. For example, I'm never going to succeed. Now ask yourself, is this thought 100% true? What evidence do I have for and against it? What's a more balanced or useful way to look at this situation? If Marcus Aurelius were watching me right now, what would he tell me? Now rewrite the thought into a more rational, grounded version. For example, I've had setbacks, but I've also made progress. Success takes time. I don't need to panic, I just need to stay disciplined. Do this daily, or any time you feel overwhelmed. Over time, you'll notice something. Your thoughts will start to change on their own. Your brain will start to default to clarity instead of catastrophe. And that shift will change your emotions, your behavior, your life. Another way to practice reframing is to regularly strip events down to their bare facts. This is something Marcus did constantly. He'd look at a situation and reduce it to what was actually happening, without emotional color. For instance, if he got sick, he wouldn't write, "I'm suffering, this is awful." He'd write something like, "The body is experiencing illness, this is part of nature. It will pass, or it won't. Either way, I can handle it." That kind of detachment isn't cold, it's powerful. It gives you the mental distance to respond with reason instead of panic. You can practice this too. Whenever something upsets you, ask, "What actually happened? What are the raw facts, without my interpretation?" Then compare that to what your mind told you happened. Usually you'll see a huge gap. The facts are neutral. Your mind adds the story, and most of the time that story makes you feel worse than you need to. It's also helpful to remember this. Thoughts are just mental events. They're not commands, they're not prophecies. They're not necessarily true. They're just things that arise in the mind. Some are useful, many are not. You don't have to believe everything you think. You don't have to react to every mental impulse. You can observe, pause, question, and choose. That's what Marcus did. That's what Stoicism teaches. And that's what will change your life, if you practice it. So the next time your mind starts spinning with fear, doubt, or self-hate, don't just go along with it. Stop, breathe, ask, what am I thinking? Is it true? Is it helping me? Write it down, challenge it, reframe it. Choose a thought that strengthens you, not weakens you. That's the Stoic way, not to suppress emotion, but to shape it through the power of reason. Not to live without struggle, but to struggle well, with clarity, dignity, and strength. You're not your thoughts, you're the one who sees them. And once you start choosing which ones to keep, you stop being a prisoner and start becoming free. One of the most universal sources of pain in life is loss. The loss of someone you love, the loss of a dream, the loss of a relationship, a job, a version of yourself. But loss is not always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. It shows up in the background of your daily life. The creeping fear that something good will end, that something safe will be taken away, that change is coming whether you like it or not. We try to protect ourselves from this fear by clinging tighter to what we have. We try to freeze moments in time. We try to make people stay. We try to hold on to feelings, identities, routines, as if we can somehow outsmart the passing of time. But we can't. Everything you love will eventually change or disappear or end. And if you build your life on the illusion that it won't, you're setting yourself up for heartbreak. Marcus Aurelius understood this better than most. He lived every day with the awareness that everything is temporary, and instead of letting that crush him, he let it clarify his life. He wrote, "Loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight." That's a hard thing to accept. We usually see loss as a tragedy, something wrong, something to be resisted or avoided, but Marcus is offering a different perspective. Loss is not a mistake. It's not some rare interruption of how life is supposed to be. It is how life is. It's not the exception, it's the rule. And when you begin to see it that way, you start to loosen your grip. You stop clinging to the illusion of permanence. You begin to move with the flow of life instead of against it. Everything in nature changes. The seasons shift, the leaves fall, the sun rises and sets. People grow old, children grow up, bodies age, minds evolve. Even the cells in your body are constantly dying and renewing. The universe is in motion. Nothing stays fixed. The more you resist that truth, the more you suffer, because you're demanding that life give you something it can't give, control over the uncontrollable. But if you can stop fighting that truth, if you can surrender to it, then change becomes less frightening. It becomes part of the rhythm of life, and even loss becomes something you can carry without collapsing. This doesn't mean you shouldn't care. Stoicism doesn't ask you to stop loving people or enjoying life. It asks you to love and enjoy with your eyes open, to appreciate everything fully while you have it, knowing it could be gone tomorrow. That awareness doesn't make life darker, it makes it richer. It forces you to be present, to not take things for granted, to treat every moment like a gift instead of a guarantee. Think of someone you love, a friend, a partner, a parent, a child. Now imagine that today is the last time you'll ever see them, that this conversation, this hug, this moment, you'll never get it again. Not to be dramatic, not to scare yourself, but to remember how fragile and precious everything is. Suddenly, your attention sharpens. You listen more deeply. You speak more kindly. You hold them tighter. That's what embracing impermanence does. It wakes you up. Now think of something you lost. Maybe someone passed away. Maybe a relationship ended. Maybe a chapter of your life closed unexpectedly. You grieved. You still might be grieving. That's okay. Grief is natural. It means you cared. But underneath that grief is also a hidden truth. You had something worth losing. You got to experience it. You got to feel something real. That's a gift. And now, even though it's gone, you can carry it forward, not as pain, but as meaning, as growth, as love that changed shape but didn't disappear. The goal isn't to become cold or detached. It's to let go of the need for life to stay the same, the need for people to stay, the need for everything to go according to your plan, because the truth is, your plan was never in charge. Life unfolds on its own terms, and the more you align yourself with that reality, the more peace you'll feel, even when it hurts. So how do you begin to live this way practically? Start by noticing how you respond to change. Do you panic when routines shift? Do you cling tightly to people out of fear they'll leave? Do you resist endings even when they're necessary? Awareness is the first step. Just start observing. Notice where your fear of impermanence is creating suffering. Then remind yourself nothing is truly yours, not in the sense of ownership. Everything you have, your body, your relationships, your status, your possessions, can be taken from you. And yet, while you have them, you can love them deeply. Use them well. Be present with them fully. This paradox is what makes life both painful and beautiful. You have to love while letting go. A powerful way to internalize this is through a short acceptance meditation. It doesn't need to be complex. Just take a moment, right now, if you can. Sit comfortably, close your eyes or soften your gaze, take a deep breath in through your nose, and slowly exhale through your mouth. Let your body relax. Now silently repeat to yourself, everything is changing. Nothing is mine to keep, but while I have it, I will love it fully. Let these words sink in. Feel the truth of them. You might notice resistance. That's okay. Just breathe. You're not trying to get rid of your emotions. You're trying to make space for reality. Let yourself feel gratitude for what you've had. Let yourself feel sadness if something is gone. Don't push anything away, just sit with it, let it be. Now bring to mind something in your life that's changing, or something you're afraid to lose. It could be a person, a job, a part of yourself. Imagine holding it in your hands, and then gently imagine opening your hands. Let it rest there, not clutched, not trapped, but held freely. This is what it means to love without attachment, to care deeply without needing to control. Do this often. You don't have to wait for loss to practice letting go. You can prepare your heart for change by opening it every day. Marcus Aurelius did this constantly. That's how he stayed grounded. That's how he led with strength, even when everything around him was crumbling. So many people live in fear of loss because they've never learned how to make peace with it. But the truth is, the more you accept impermanence, the more alive you become. You stop sleepwalking through life. You stop wasting time. You start speaking the truth. You start showing up, because you know this moment will never come again. And when something ends, you don't fall apart. You bow. You bow to the passing of time. You bow to the pain. You bow to the mystery of life that gives and takes without explanation. And then you stand back up, not bitter, not broken, but deeper, wiser, more human. That's what Stoicism offers. Not a way to avoid loss, but a way to live with it, to feel it fully without letting it destroy you, to grieve, to let go, and to keep walking. Not because you're numb, but because you're strong, because you've seen the truth and you're still here, still breathing, still capable of joy. So let go, not with force, not with anger, but with softness, with reverence, with trust in the rhythm of life that holds us all. Nothing lasts, but everything leaves its mark. Let that be enough. Let that be beautiful. One of the most toxic habits of the modern mind is the constant comparison to other people. It's subtle, it's sneaky, and it's everywhere. You see someone with a better body, a nicer apartment, a more exciting relationship, more followers, more money, more talent, and suddenly, without even realizing it, you begin to feel like you're falling behind. You begin to question your own path, your own progress. You might even feel ashamed of things you were perfectly content with 5 minutes ago. What changed? Nothing real. Just the lens you're looking through. And that's the danger of comparison. It warps your vision. It poisons your peace. It turns life into a never-ending scoreboard where you are always losing. The Stoics saw this clearly even 2,000 years ago. Marcus Aurelius warned about envy, resentment, and letting other people's lives disturb your own inner balance. He wrote, "How much more grievous are the consequences of anger and grief than the causes of them?" In other words, what hurts us isn't just what happens. It's the mental patterns we fall into after it happens. You see someone else succeed, and instead of being inspired, you feel inferior. Instead of focusing on your own growth, you spiral into self-doubt. The actual trigger might be small, but the suffering it causes expands inside your mind, becoming far worse than the event itself. That's the power of unchecked comparison. It turns minor observations into major emotional storms. At its core, comparison is a form of ego. It says, I need to be better than others to feel good about myself. But Stoicism teaches the opposite. It says, your worth is not relative. It is not earned by outperforming others. It comes from your character, your intentions, your choices. Marcus never measured his life by how he ranked against other emperors or philosophers or generals. He measured it by how well he was living according to his principles. Was he just? Was he disciplined? Was he kind? Was he present? That was enough, because that's all you can control. Everything else, what people think of you, how they compare you to others, how far ahead someone else seems, is outside your circle of influence. The problem today is that we live in a world where comparison is almost impossible to escape. Every time you open your phone, you're bombarded with curated glimpses into other people's lives, edited, filtered, designed to impress. You're not seeing their reality, you're seeing a highlight reel. But your brain doesn't know that. It compares anyway, and slowly, quietly, you start to feel small. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because your attention has been hijacked. You've outsourced your self-worth to a world that's designed to make you feel inadequate. So how do you escape this trap? How do you stop letting other people's lives dictate how you feel about your own? The first step is awareness. You need to catch yourself in the act of comparison. The next time you feel that pang of envy or self-doubt after scrolling, pause. Ask yourself, what exactly triggered this feeling? Was it someone's success, their appearance, their lifestyle? Name it. Then ask, why does this bother me? What belief do I have that's making this feel personal? You'll usually find a hidden story like, if they're doing better than me, then I must be failing. Or, if they have what I want, then there's less for me. These are lies. Life is not a zero-sum game. Someone else's beauty doesn't diminish yours. Someone else's success doesn't block your path. Someone else's timeline is not your deadline. Once you've identified the false story, rewrite it. Replace it with something true and empowering. For example, I don't need to match anyone's journey. I'm growing at my own pace. Their success is not my failure. Do this every time comparison creeps in. Over time, it rewires your mental habits. You stop automatically assuming you're behind. You stop letting other people's lives define your value. You return to your own lane. The second step is to reclaim your attention, because comparison lives in distraction. The more time you spend watching other people live, the less time you spend actually living your own life. This is why a social media detox isn't just a trendy self-help tip, it's a philosophical reset. You don't have to quit forever, but taking intentional breaks can show you just how much of your mental energy has been drained by constant exposure to other people's curated realities. Try this. Go one full day without social media. No Instagram, no TikTok, no YouTube shorts, no scrolling. Pay attention to how often you reach for your phone out of habit. Pay attention to what happens in your mind when you're not constantly comparing yourself to others. You might feel uncomfortable at first. That's normal. But underneath that discomfort is a kind of quiet, a kind of clarity. When you're not bombarded with other people's lives, you start to hear your own voice again. You start to remember what matters to you, not what's trending. If a full day feels like too much, start smaller. Block off the first and last hour of your day as comparison-free zones. No scrolling in bed, no checking likes or messages as soon as you wake up. These are sacred times. Use them to reconnect with yourself. Read, reflect, write, go outside. Do anything that brings you back to your own experience. That's where your life is, not in someone else's feed. The third step is to redefine success on your own terms. Because a lot of comparison comes from chasing goals that aren't even yours. Maybe you think you want a certain lifestyle because you've seen it glamorized 1,000 times. But do you really? Do you actually value that life? Or are you just chasing what others have been trained to desire? Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself to strip things down to their essence. Don't be hypnotized by appearances. Ask, what is this thing really? And do I actually want it? Create your own definition of a good life, one that aligns with your values. Maybe it's not flashy, maybe it's not impressive to others, but if it's honest and fulfilling to you, then it's enough. When you're clear on what you value, you stop being pulled in 100 directions. You stop measuring your life with someone else's ruler. Finally, practice gratitude, not as a cliché, but as a discipline. Every day, write down 3 things that are already good in your life. Not things you hope to have, not things other people admire. Things that are real, present, and meaningful to you. This simple act shifts your focus from what you lack to what you already have. And when your eyes are open to the gifts in front of you, it becomes much harder to obsess over what others seem to have. Marcus Aurelius wasn't a Stoic because he was emotionless. He was a Stoic because he trained his mind to stay rooted in what mattered. He knew that envy, comparison, and ego were distractions. They pulled you away from your center. They made you forget who you are. But when you return to yourself, when you live according to your values, on your timeline, with your attention focused on what you can control, you begin to feel something rare: contentment. Not because you've won the race, but because you've stopped running one you were never meant to be in. So stop looking sideways. Stop measuring your life against someone else's highlight reel. You don't need to be ahead. You don't need to be impressive. You need to be real. You need to be grounded. You need to be you. And that will always be enough, if you let it. There are times in life when the pain becomes so loud, so constant, that you start to question what the point of it all is. You get out of bed and wonder why. You go to work, go through the motions, talk to people, but everything feels hollow, like you're just pretending to live. The suffering doesn't even need to be dramatic. Sometimes it's just a dull ache, an invisible weight. You feel directionless, disconnected. You're not necessarily falling apart, but you've lost your why. And once that happens, it becomes harder and harder to keep going. Because humans don't just need comfort or pleasure, we need purpose. We need to feel like our existence means something. Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply. He lived in a time of war, sickness, betrayal, political pressure. Yet he carried an enormous burden every day without giving in to despair. He didn't escape into distractions. He didn't whine about his responsibilities. Instead, he anchored himself in purpose. A purpose not based on glory or pleasure, but on service and integrity. He wrote, "Do every act of your life as if it were your last." Not as a threat or a fear tactic, but as a call to urgency, a reminder that each day is a chance to live with intention. That meaning isn't something you wait to find, it's something you choose to create through action. For Marcus, life was not about chasing happiness. It was about fulfilling his role as a father, a leader, a philosopher, a human being. He believed that everyone has a duty, not in the sense of being forced, but in the sense of rising to a higher standard. That duty is to contribute, to help, to live with courage, to hold yourself to something greater than impulse or comfort, even when you feel like giving up. And that's the thing about purpose. It doesn't make the pain disappear, but it gives the pain a direction. When you know why you're struggling, the struggle becomes bearable. When your suffering is attached to something meaningful, it changes shape. It becomes a kind of fuel. Marcus didn't wake up every morning excited to lead a crumbling empire through disease and war, but he showed up because he knew his role mattered, because he knew that giving up would only make things worse, because he believed that even the smallest acts of discipline, honesty, and justice were worth doing, no matter how he felt inside. In today's world, purpose has been hijacked. People talk about finding your purpose as if it's some magical moment where the clouds part and the perfect path reveals itself. But Stoicism says something different. It says, you don't find purpose, you choose it, you live it, even when you're confused, even when you're hurting, especially when things are falling apart. Purpose is not a big abstract goal. It's a decision you make right now to show up with intention, to bring value, to act with integrity, to care about something more than your own comfort. So how do you find purpose when you feel like nothing matters? How do you take action when you're drowning in apathy or pain? Start small. Don't wait for motivation or some big revelation. Ask yourself, what's one thing I can do today that makes the world slightly better? That could be showing up for someone who needs you, doing your job with care, even if it's not your dream job, keeping a promise to yourself, being kind to a stranger, creating something, cleaning something, learning something. Any act of effort that aligns with your values, because the truth is, meaning is built in the doing, not the thinking. You won't feel clear before you move. You'll feel clear because you moved. Marcus believed that every action mattered, not because anyone was watching, but because your actions reflect who you are. If today were your last day, would you be proud of how you treated others, how you carried yourself, how you used your time? You don't need to obsess over death, but keeping it in mind strips away the nonsense. It reminds you that you don't have forever, that each choice counts, that life is short, yes, but that means every moment is precious. One practical way to live this mindset is through daily intention setting. It's simple but powerful. Each morning, take a moment, just a few minutes, to reflect. Ask yourself, what kind of person do I want to be today? What values do I want to embody? What do I want to give rather than just take? Don't make a huge to-do list. Focus on the how, not just the what. For example, I will face discomfort with courage. I will treat others with patience and respect. I will speak the truth even when it's hard. I will not waste time on things I can't control. I will do one thing today that aligns with my higher self. Write these down if you can. Keep them in your pocket. Reread them throughout the day. This small ritual helps you anchor yourself. It brings you back to your why. And when pain or boredom or doubt shows up, and it will, you'll have something to hold on to. Something to remind you, this moment still matters. I still have a choice. The beauty of Stoic purpose is that it doesn't require external success. You don't need a perfect job, a huge following, or endless inspiration. You just need a willingness to live with depth, to care, to try, to stand for something, even when no one sees it. Marcus knew he couldn't control what people said about him. He couldn't stop war, or disease, or loss, but he could control how he lived, and that was enough. Maybe you're going through something right now. Maybe your life feels like a mess. That's okay. Purpose doesn't require a perfect setting. In fact, the darker things get, the more important your purpose becomes, because it's what keeps you from giving up. It's what turns your suffering into strength. It's what makes even the smallest acts meaningful. Washing the dishes becomes an act of discipline. Getting out of bed becomes an act of courage. Listening to a friend becomes an act of service. These aren't small things. These are the building blocks of a meaningful life. The Stoics didn't believe in running from pain. They believed in walking through it, with your head up, your heart open, and your values intact. They believed that duty and service weren't burdens. They were the path to resilience, to show up not because it's easy, but because it's right. That's real strength. That's real purpose. So if you feel lost, if you feel like nothing matters, don't wait for clarity to strike. Start acting with purpose, even if you don't feel it yet. Do something small and meaningful today. Help someone, honor your word, create beauty, choose honesty. Hold yourself to a higher standard, then do it again tomorrow, and the next day. Over time, you'll notice something. Your pain is still there, but so is your dignity. Your sorrow still exists, but now it has weight. It has meaning. You're not just surviving anymore. You're living on purpose. And that, as Marcus Aurelius shows us, is how you turn despair into strength. Not by escaping it, but by rising inside it, one action at a time. There is one truth we all live with, whether we admit it or not. We are going to die. Everyone we know will die. Everything we love will eventually come to an end. This truth is so terrifying to most people that they spend their lives trying to ignore it. They distract themselves with noise. They fill their calendars with obligations and their minds with entertainment. They chase money, validation, comfort, anything to avoid sitting with the reality of their own mortality. But the Stoics didn't run from death. They turned toward it. They used it, not as a source of fear, but as a source of freedom. Marcus Aurelius wrote one of the most powerful reminders of this truth. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think. It wasn't meant to depress you, it was meant to wake you up. Because when you remember that your time is limited, you stop wasting it. You stop pretending you have forever. You stop putting off what matters. You stop saying someday and start living now. Modern life teaches us to avoid death. We push old age to the edges of society. We sterilize death behind hospital curtains. We act like we'll live forever, but death is not the enemy. The Stoics believed it's actually the greatest teacher we have. If you let it, the thought of death can give you clarity, courage, and a deep sense of gratitude. Because when you really accept that life is short, you also realize how precious it is. You start to see each moment not as something ordinary, but as something sacred. Think about how much of your unhappiness comes from taking life for granted. You complain about your job, your body, your relationships, your daily routine, not because they're unbearable, but because you've forgotten how fragile and temporary everything is. But imagine if you really remembered that this could all be gone tomorrow. Would you still waste hours scrolling? Would you still avoid the difficult conversation? Would you still hold grudges, live in fear, stay small, play it safe? Probably not, because death reminds you what actually matters and what doesn't. And this is the paradox. When you remember death, you don't become morbid. You become more alive. You love deeper. You listen more closely. You speak more honestly. You stop sleepwalking through your days. You take risks. You say, I love you. You forgive. You show up. Because there's no guarantee you'll get another chance. This is the heart of Memento Mori, which means remember that you must die. It's not a threat. It's a call to wake up, to live fully, to live honestly, to live without regret. Marcus Aurelius didn't write about death to scare himself. He did it to anchor himself. When he was tempted to waste time, to get caught up in status or vanity or distraction, he reminded himself, you don't know how much longer you have. That simple reminder helped him return to what really mattered, and it can do the same for you. Start with this. Take a moment to picture your own death, not in a dramatic way, just honestly. One day, you will exhale for the last time. You don't know when. It could be decades from now, or it could be next week. You won't be able to bring anything with you, not your money, not your followers, not your ego. All that will be left is how you lived, the choices you made, the people you touched, the kind of person you were. Now ask yourself, if today were your last day, what would you regret not doing? What words are you holding back? What risks are you avoiding? What dreams are you postponing? What kind of person do you wish you had the courage to become? These are not abstract questions. These are the compass for your life. Because when you get to the end, it won't matter how popular you were. It won't matter how many things you collected. What will matter is whether you lived fully or hid, whether you gave your love or withheld it, whether you used your time with intention or let it slip through your fingers. If you want to make this real, try this simple Memento Mori exercise. Find a quiet place. Sit comfortably. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath. Let your body relax. Then, gently bring your attention to this thought. I am going to die. I don't know when, but it is certain. Say it to yourself a few times, slowly, not to scare yourself, but to remember the truth. Now think about today. If this were your last day alive, how would you want to show up? What would you change about how you move through this moment? Let yourself feel that. Sit with it. Don't run away. Stay with the weight of your own mortality until it softens you, until it brings you closer to the present. You can also try journaling with this prompt every morning. If today were my last day, how would I live it? Don't write down your schedule. Write your intentions. Who do you want to be today? How do you want to treat people? What fear do you want to let go of? What truth do you want to speak? This practice doesn't make you anxious. It makes you awake. It keeps your life aligned with what actually matters. You can even keep a physical reminder of death nearby. Some people wear a Memento Mori ring, or keep a skull on their desk, or write Marcus's quote somewhere they'll see it daily. Not to be dark, but to stay rooted, to remember what's real. Death isn't something to be feared, it's something to be understood. Because once you accept it, you stop living a half-life. You stop waiting for some distant future to finally be happy, or brave, or whole. You realize that the time is now, not next year, not after you fix everything, not once you've achieved some perfect version of yourself. Now, this moment, exactly as it is your life. And one day, it will end. That's not meant to make you sad. It's meant to make you grateful. You still have time, you're still breathing, you still have a chance to turn things around, to forgive, to love, to speak your truth, to live with integrity, to do the thing you've been afraid to do. As long as you are alive, it is not too late. Marcus Aurelius didn't just think about death, he used it as a tool, as a motivator, as a compass. And so can you. Not to become obsessed with dying, but to become obsessed with living. Fully, boldly, without wasting your time on things that don't matter. So remember, you could leave life right now. Let that thought shape your next conversation. Let it guide your next choice. Let it remind you to stop waiting. Because this isn't a dress rehearsal, this is it. And if you can learn to live with death in your awareness, not as a fear, but as a companion, you will finally begin to live the way you were always meant to. No more hiding, no more pretending, no more waiting for permission. You are going to die, but right now, you are still alive. And that is a gift. Use it well. There is something inside you that you've spent your entire life avoiding. A feeling, a memory, a truth too heavy to hold. You buried it when you were young, maybe not with a shovel, but with silence. You learned to smile when you wanted to scream, to please when you wanted to rebel, to achieve when you felt hollow. And it worked for a while. But no matter how fast you run, it's always a step behind. It doesn't need to chase you, it's part of you. It lives in your shadow. Everyone has fears. Some are loud, fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of being seen. Others are quiet, almost invisible. The fear of your own anger, your ambition, your desire to be powerful, to be free. But Carl Jung believed that these fears don't just haunt us, they shape us. Over time, what you avoid becomes what you are. If you run from weakness, you become a bully. If you run from vulnerability, you become cold. If you run from your own darkness, you become hollow, like a mask with no real face underneath. The dark truth about growth is this: you can't become whole by chasing light. You have to walk through the dark. We live in a culture obsessed with healing and positivity, and yet so many people remain stuck. Why? Because they only want to grow on the surface. They want to feel better, not go deeper. They want to improve the parts they already like, while ignoring the parts that scare them. But Jung's work was never about feeling better. It was about becoming whole, and wholeness demands integration, not avoidance. You're not here to cut pieces off yourself until you're good enough. You're here to reclaim the parts you've lost, to meet the things you buried, and to realize they were never here to hurt you. They were here to help you become who you truly are. What you resist persists, Jung wrote. The more you push something away, the more it grows in the dark. You see it in other people, you fight it in relationships, you blame it on the world, but it's you. And the longer you pretend it's not, the more it takes over from behind the curtain. That's how you get sabotage. That's how you end up stuck in cycles you swore you'd outgrow. That's how you wake up one day feeling like a stranger in your own skin. This is not about fixing yourself. You were never broken. You were fragmented, torn between who you really are and who you thought you had to be. Growth isn't found in becoming better. It's found in becoming real, and realness comes at a cost. You have to face the pain. You have to look at the fear. You have to walk down into the dark and sit with it. long enough to hear what it has to say, long enough to see that it was never the enemy, it was the exile. The part of you that's been knocking on the door, waiting for you to stop pretending. So ask yourself this: what if everything you're afraid of is just a part of you waiting to come home? What if the fear isn't there to punish you, but to guide you? What if the shadow isn't trying to destroy your life, but to wake you up? Maybe you don't need more light. Maybe you just need the courage to walk into the dark. Because the truth is, until you do, you'll never feel whole. You'll always be half of yourself, safe but small, and deep down you know that's not what you came here for. The shadow is not some mystical faraway concept. It's not a demon lurking outside of you. It's much closer than that. It's the part of you that you pretend doesn't exist. It's made of everything you pushed away, everything you repressed, everything you didn't want to be, because someone, somewhere, taught you that it was wrong, that it was dangerous, that it would make you unlovable, and so you buried it. But the shadow doesn't disappear just because you deny it. It moves underground into your unconscious. It becomes the hidden architecture of your life, shaping your thoughts, reactions, behaviors, and choices in ways you don't even realize. This is what Carl Jung meant when he said, "Everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is." The parts of you that are disowned don't go away. They grow stronger, but in silence. And they begin to live your life for you, from behind the scenes. The shadow contains everything you've been told not to be. It could be your anger, your sadness, your desire for power. It could be your sexuality, your selfishness, your assertiveness. But it's not just bad stuff. The shadow also holds your brilliance, your potential, your creativity, your wildness, anything that made others uncomfortable, anything that didn't fit the mold. And so, ironically, the very things that could have made you powerful or free ended up locked in the dark. This happens early. Most people start forming their shadow in childhood, when love and acceptance are tied to behavior. A child shows anger and is punished. A child cries and is told to man up. A child expresses joy or creativity and is mocked or ignored. In that moment, the child learns, this part of me is not safe to show, so they tuck it away, and they build a mask, a persona, to survive. But the cost of survival is wholeness. The cost is that you become a stranger to yourself. You might think of the shadow as something bad or evil, but that's not what Jung meant. The shadow isn't evil, it's simply unacknowledged. It's like a wild animal. If you cage it and ignore it, it becomes dangerous. But if you understand it, if you integrate it, it becomes part of your power. The shadow is pure psychic energy, and energy doesn't vanish. If you don't channel it consciously, it will find a way to act itself out unconsciously. It will show up in your relationships, in your addictions, in your failures, in the very things you swear you don't understand about yourself. Take the example of the nice guy. Always polite, agreeable, self-sacrificing. On the surface, he seems like the perfect person, but underneath there's suppressed rage. Rage that comes from years of not speaking up, not setting boundaries, not being heard. Eventually, the shadow breaks through, and he explodes. He says things he doesn't mean. He does things he never thought he was capable of. And afterward, he's full of shame and confusion. That wasn't me, but it was him. It was the part of him he didn't want to admit existed. Or consider the perfectionist. Always performing, always achieving, always fine. But underneath is the terror of being seen as flawed or inadequate. Deep down there's a shadow of shame. a voice that says, if they really knew me, they wouldn't love me. So they chase perfection not out of ambition, but out of fear. And no matter how much they accomplish, it's never enough, because the real wound hasn't been touched. The shadow isn't only emotional, it's also spiritual. It's where we exile our hunger for meaning, our longing for the sacred, our connection to something larger than ourselves. In modern life, we often replace this with distractions, scrolling, chasing status, shallow validation. But part of what people are really searching for is the part of themselves they abandoned, the mysterious, untamed, intuitive part that lives in the unconscious, in the shadow. The tragedy is that people spend years, sometimes decades, running from their shadow without knowing it. They change jobs, change partners, change countries. They take up new habits, new identities, new beliefs. But eventually the same patterns return, the same triggers, the same emptiness. That's when some people finally realize, maybe the thing I'm trying to escape is inside me. Jung believed that this moment of realization, when the shadow steps into the light, is the beginning of true growth, because until you acknowledge the shadow, you are not fully alive. You are fragmented. You are half a person wearing a mask. You might be admired, you might be successful, but you won't be whole. And deep down, your soul knows the difference. Integration begins when you stop judging your darkness, when you stop labeling anger as bad, or fear as weakness, or ambition as selfish. You begin to ask, what is this part of me trying to say? Why is it here? What would happen if I listened instead of suppressed it? That's when the energy locked inside the shadow begins to transform. It's not about becoming a different person. It's about becoming who you were before you learned to hide. This work isn't glamorous. It's not about quick tips or morning routines. It's slow, it's painful. It asks everything of you, but it also gives everything back. Because when you reclaim the parts of yourself you've exiled, you become powerful in a way that's quiet but undeniable. You don't need to prove anything anymore. You don't need to chase approval. You're no longer controlled by unconscious fears because you faced them. You've invited them in. You've made peace with your reflection. In the end, the shadow isn't something to be destroyed. It's something to be befriended. It's the part of you that stayed behind when you went chasing light. And now, it's calling you home. There's a version of you that you show to the world every day. It's composed, controlled, acceptable. It smiles when expected, speaks when appropriate, and stays silent when necessary. It's the version of you that knows what to say in a meeting, how to behave at dinner, what not to post online, and which parts of your story are safe to tell. Carl Jung called this socially constructed version of the self the persona, the mask you wear to survive. The persona isn't fake, not exactly. It's a necessary tool. In fact, without it, we wouldn't function in society. It helps you navigate the world. It allows you to blend in, to be liked, to play roles. Student, friend, parent, professional. But there's a difference between wearing a mask and becoming it. Over time, many people forget there's anything behind the mask at all. They forget that they once had desires and dreams that didn't fit into the polished image, and so they trade their wholeness for social approval. Slowly, their identity becomes a performance. Jung described the persona as that which in reality one is not, but which oneself as well as others think one is. In other words, it's not only the image you present to the world, it's the image you start believing is real. You confuse the mask with the face underneath, and this is where the real danger begins. Because when you live only through your persona, you disconnect from your authenticity. You shape yourself according to expectations, not truth. You repress what doesn't fit. You curate your personality like a brand, but underneath it all, the shadow festers. The persona and the shadow are twins in opposition. The brighter the mask, the darker the shadow it casts. If your persona is the strong one, then weakness, fear, and sadness will be buried in your unconscious. If your persona is the nice one, then anger and boundaries get pushed into the dark. If your persona is the successful one, then failure, doubt, and vulnerability become shameful ghosts haunting your perfection. The more you cling to the persona, the more you're forced to exile the parts that don't align with it. And this is how you become split inside. Think about the overconfident leader, the one who's always sure, always decisive, always dominant. The world sees power, charisma, control. But deep down, this person may be terrified of being wrong, terrified of looking weak, terrified of being exposed as a fraud. So they double down on dominance. Their mask grows thicker, and behind it, a scared child sits, unseen and unheard. The more success they gain, the more threatened they feel. Because the more there is to lose, the more cracks appear in the illusion. Or think of the people pleaser, the friend everyone loves, the one who never says no, the one who always knows how to make others feel good. Behind this gentle facade often lies a storm of resentment, rage, and exhaustion. This person may have learned early in life that love had to be earned, that being liked was safer than being honest, that being quiet was better than being real. So they built a persona that gave others what they wanted, while silently starving themselves of what they needed. Eventually, the pressure builds, the smile becomes forced, the kindness becomes a cage. The tragedy of the persona is that it works, until it doesn't. At first it gets you love, acceptance, and validation, but over time the soul begins to rot beneath the performance. You start to feel hollow, disconnected, emotionally numb. You don't know why, because everything looks fine on the surface, but something is missing. That something is you. This is the point where many people begin to crack. The mask slips, a failure, a heartbreak, a breakdown, something shatters the illusion, and in that moment, a terrifying truth is revealed. I don't know who I am without this role. But that crack in the mask is also the first breath of freedom, because growth doesn't begin with perfection. It begins when the persona starts to fall apart. There is a deep and painful awakening that comes when you realize that you've been living someone else's idea of who you should be. That you've been editing yourself for so long, you've forgotten the unedited version. This realization is brutal. It feels like a death, and in many ways it is. The persona has to die before the self can be born. This is what Jung called the process of individuation, the slow, painful journey of becoming your whole self, rather than the mask you've worn. Imagine a mirror shattering in slow motion, each crack a belief breaking down. I must always be strong. I must never be angry. I must always succeed. I must never fail. I must always be good. One by one, the lies fracture, and on the other side of the glass, your real face begins to emerge, raw, imperfect, honest. Not the version people applauded, not the version that fit in, but the version that is alive. This process is not clean or graceful, it's not Instagrammable. You might cry, you might rage, you might lose friends, jobs, entire parts of your life that were built around the persona. But what you gain is far more valuable. Integrity, a sense of self that can't be taken from you, a wholeness that doesn't depend on applause, a peace that comes not from pretending to be something, but from finally being what you are. It's important to say, the goal isn't to destroy the persona. You still need it. You still need to play roles in life. Teacher, partner, parent, creator. But the difference is that the roles don't own you anymore. You're not lost in them. You can move in and out of them with awareness. You know they're just clothes you wear, not your skin. The key is to stop identifying with the mask, to know that you are the one behind it, to recognize when the persona is keeping you safe and when it's keeping you stuck, and to listen for the voice beneath it, the one that's been whispering your real name while you've been performing for the world. Because in the end, the persona will always crack. Life has a way of breaking the illusion, and when that happens, you'll be left with one question. Who am I when I'm not being who they expect me to be? That's where the journey begins. That's where the self waits. Behind the performance, behind the smile, behind the silence. It's been waiting for you to stop pretending. It's been waiting for you to come home. There is a part of your mind that never sleeps. While you're busy managing your day, checking boxes, replying to emails, living on the surface, this deeper part of you is always watching, always feeling, always remembering. It holds everything you've ever forgotten, every emotion you never fully felt, every truth you didn't want to see. This is the unconscious, and its voice is subtle but relentless. You can't silence it, you can only listen or ignore it at your own cost. And according to Carl Jung, one of the clearest ways the unconscious tries to speak to you is through your dreams. To Jung, dreams weren't random brain activity or leftover noise from the day. They were messages, symbols, clues, the language of the soul. While your conscious mind sleeps, the unconscious steps forward and says everything you've been unwilling or unable to hear. It shows you what you're hiding. It brings you face to face with your desires, your fears, your repressed memories, and your hidden potential. But it does so in the form of images, stories, metaphors. Jung believed that dreams were the bridge between the ego and the deeper self. Every dream you have is trying to tell you something, not in a literal way. Dreams don't speak the language of facts or bullet points. They speak in symbols. A house might represent your psyche. A flood could symbolize overwhelming emotion. A chase might reflect you're running from a truth you're not ready to face. A snake might be danger or healing. The meaning isn't fixed. It depends on you, your story, your emotions, your associations. That's what makes dream interpretation an inner art, not a science. Think about the last dream you had that shook you. Maybe it was a nightmare. Maybe it was a dream where you were lost, falling, trapped, or being chased. These kinds of dreams are incredibly common. They're not just meaningless fears. They're symbols of confrontation. The chase dream is often your shadow pursuing you. It's the parts of yourself you've denied. Your anger, your trauma, your desire, your sadness, trying to get your attention. It's your unconscious saying, "Stop running, face me." Nightmares, as painful as they are often the loudest calls for healing. They reveal unintegrated fear or suppressed emotion. A reoccurring nightmare might be your psyche replaying an unprocessed event over and over until you finally face it. Jung saw nightmares not as threats, but as gifts. They are invitations, brutal, unfiltered, but sacred. They ask you to look where you've refused to look. The unconscious doesn't only speak at night, it breaks through during the day in more subtle but equally powerful ways. Slips of the tongue, sudden bursts of emotion, irrational behavior, all of these can be signs that something deeper is trying to emerge. Ever said something and immediately thought, "Where did that come from?" That's your unconscious leaking out. Or maybe you find yourself intensely reacting to something small. Someone criticizes you, and you spiral into shame or rage. That's a projection, where you unconsciously assign your disowned emotions to someone else, because it's safer to see them out there than to feel them in here. Symbols are everywhere, not just in dreams, but in art, myths, fantasies, even advertising. Jung believed that modern life is still filled with ancient archetypes, we just don't recognize them. The hero, the mother, the trickster, the shadow. These figures show up in our movies, our stories, and even our personalities. They're ancient energies, alive in the collective unconscious, speaking to us across time and culture. Understanding these symbols gives you a new lens to view yourself and the world. You begin to realize that life isn't just happening to you, it's communicating with you. One of the most powerful things you can do is start paying attention to your dreams, not casually, intentionally. Keep a notebook or a dream journal by your bed. The moment you wake up, write down everything you remember. Don't try to figure it out immediately, just observe. Over time, patterns will emerge, themes will repeat, certain symbols will reappear. That's your unconscious creating a dialogue, and the more you listen, the more it speaks. You'll begin to notice how your dreams reflect your inner state. They'll tell you when you're ignoring something. They'll show you what you're craving or what you're afraid to face. Also pay attention to your irrational fears, especially the ones that don't seem to make sense. Sometimes the things we fear the most are actually the doorways to our deepest transformation. The fear of being alone, the fear of failure, the fear of being seen for who we really are. These fears might not be threats, they might be thresholds. They guard the part of you that's waiting to be reclaimed. Jung said, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." Most people spend their lives chasing dreams in the external world. Money, status, image. But inner awakening requires turning inward. It requires facing what you've suppressed, listening to the voices you've ignored, honoring the dreams that seem too strange, too painful, or too irrational. Because often, your unconscious knows what your conscious mind is too afraid to admit. This isn't just philosophy, it's practice. If you're constantly confused about why you feel empty, or why you keep repeating the same mistakes, or why you feel disconnected from yourself, your unconscious already knows the answer. You just haven't learned how to listen. Start with your dreams. Pay attention to the emotions that won't go away. Track the thoughts that pop into your head when you're half asleep or daydreaming. Begin to explore the symbols that call to you, the animals, colors, characters, stories that feel strangely familiar. All of them are keys. You are not just a thinking mind, you are a vast inner world, layered, symbolic, emotional, and ancient. Inside you live generations of experience, myth, and memory. Your unconscious is not trying to punish you, it's trying to free you. But you have to meet it on its terms, not with logic but with attention, not with judgment but with curiosity. This journey is not quick. You won't solve your unconscious like a math problem. But over time, you'll build a relationship with it. You'll start to notice how your dreams guide you, how your fears teach you, how your symbols evolve. And little by little, you'll feel less like a stranger to yourself. You'll begin to live in alignment, not just with your surface self, but with your whole self. The unconscious isn't just where you hide your darkness, it's also where your genius, creativity, and intuition live. It's the source of your deepest insights and your wildest ideas. Tapping into it isn't dangerous, it's essential. Because the more you integrate your unconscious, the more you wake up. And the more you wake up, the more your life stops feeling like a dream and starts becoming something real. There's a hard truth that most people avoid their entire lives. The more you run from your shadow, the more power it has over you. Denial doesn't dissolve it, it feeds it. The things you hide don't go away just because you don't look at them. In fact, they grow stronger in the dark. They twist, they mutate, and eventually, they find a way to act themselves out in your life, usually when you least expect it, and often in ways that cause the most pain. Carl Jung understood this better than anyone. He warned, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." This isn't abstract theory, it's how your life actually works. Think about the patterns you can't seem to break, the relationships that always end the same way, the goals you sabotage just before they're within reach, the way you sometimes explode over something small, or the way you numb out and shut down when things get too real. These aren't just bad habits, they're often your shadow, leaking out through the cracks of your well-kept persona. The shadow has only two options, to be faced or to possess you. When it's repressed, it doesn't die, it festers in the unconscious. It becomes an invisible puppet master, pulling the strings of your behavior, your reactions, your fears. You think you're making decisions, but you're actually just reacting to buried pain you haven't dealt with yet. You think you're choosing your life, but the truth is, your shadow is choosing it for you. Let's look at some examples. Consider the spiritual person who's devoted to peace, love, and compassion. Someone who prides themselves on being calm, kind, and forgiving. That sounds admirable, right? But if they've repressed their anger, if they've denied their capacity for conflict or boundaries, that anger doesn't disappear, it goes underground. And eventually it starts to leak out in passive-aggressive behavior. Sarcasm, guilt-tripping, silent treatment, all dressed in a spiritual robe. On the outside, they're still nice, but on the inside, resentment is boiling, and eventually it erupts in ways that shock even them. Or take the man who fears weakness. Maybe he grew up being told that vulnerability was shameful, that emotions were for the weak. So he builds a persona of strength, dominance, and control. He becomes highly competent, successful, even intimidating. But underneath, there's a terror. What if I'm not enough? What if they see the real me? So instead of facing his vulnerability, he doubles down on control. He becomes rigid, aggressive, and emotionally cold. He criticizes others for the very feelings he can't face in himself. In his fear of being weak, he becomes cruel. In denying his humanity, he loses his empathy. This is what Jung meant by possession. The shadow, when ignored, doesn't go away. It takes over. It becomes the voice in your head that judges others. It becomes the addiction you can't shake. It becomes the toxic relationship you can't leave. It shows up as sabotage in your career, your health, your love life. It shows up in projection, when you see your own flaws in everyone else, but never in yourself. You think the world is full of liars, but you've been lying to yourself for years. You think everyone is shallow, but you're the one afraid to go deeper. You hate arrogance in others, but it's really your own denied desire to be seen and admired. This is the shadow at work. The more you ignore your shadow, the more it hunts you. It waits in the places you refuse to look. It whispers in your reactions, your judgments, your triggers. That's why the same problems keep showing up. That's why you attract the same kinds of people. That's why you keep feeling stuck, no matter how many books you read or goals you set. Because your unconscious is trying to wake you up, and it will keep doing so, louder and louder, until you finally listen. Addictions are another doorway where the shadow reveals itself. Whether it's substances, screens, shopping, work, or food, addiction is often not about pleasure, but about escape. Escape from the parts of yourself you haven't integrated. You numb the anxiety because you won't face the fear underneath it. You chase pleasure because you've forgotten how to feel safe in stillness. You overwork because you don't believe you're worthy without constant proving. The addiction isn't the enemy, it's a symptom, a signal, pointing to a part of you that's screaming to be seen. And then there's the shadow in relationships, one of the clearest mirrors of our unconscious. Think about the people you fall for, the ones who trigger you, the ones you can't let go of, even when they're bad for you. That's not just love or chemistry. That's the shadow playing out through attachment and projection. You fall for people who embody parts of you that you've lost touch with, or people who confirm your deepest wounds. You fight with partners over things that are really about your parents. You attract people who abandon you, not because you're cursed, but because you haven't yet faced the fear of being abandoned, and how that fear is shaping every choice you make. None of this means you're broken. In fact, this is exactly how the unconscious tries to heal. It repeats until you realize what needs to be reclaimed. Life keeps giving you the same lesson until you finally stop, feel, reflect, and transform. The shadow is not your enemy, it's your curriculum. So what's the way out? You stop running, you stop blaming, you turn around, and you face what you've been avoiding. You ask, what part of me have I disowned? What am I afraid to feel? What am I projecting onto others that I need to reclaim in myself? And you start to make the unconscious conscious. That doesn't mean you suddenly become perfect or healed. It means you become honest, aware, present. You stop being a puppet of your shadow, and you start becoming its master. This is the beginning of real freedom. Not the freedom of having no problems, but the freedom of no longer being ruled by unconscious forces. The freedom of knowing what drives you. The freedom of responding instead of reacting. The freedom of creating your life instead of repeating it. Facing your shadow takes courage, but the cost of avoiding it is far greater. You'll lose years to patterns that don't serve you. You'll hurt people you care about. You'll wake up one day realizing you've built a life that looks nothing like who you really are. And beneath all your success, there will be a quiet ache, the ache of unintegrated truth. The shadow is not a monster to be feared. It's a messenger, a teacher. It holds the keys to your strength, your authenticity, and your wholeness. But only if you stop pushing it away. Only if you listen. Because in the end, what you fear will become you, unless you have the courage to become it first. Not to act it out, but to face it, feel it, understand it, and through that understanding, transform it. This is the work of a lifetime, but it's also the work that makes your life truly your own. There comes a moment when running is no longer an option. You've tried everything else, the distractions, the self-help slogans, the constant striving to improve, to become someone you can be proud of. But eventually something cracks. A trigger, a heartbreak, a sense of emptiness you can't shake. And then the realization hits. The thing I've been trying to escape is me. This is where real healing begins, not with perfection, but with honesty, radical honesty. The kind of honesty that cuts through the mask, that doesn't care how polished you look on the outside. The kind of honesty that says, I am not who I pretend to be. I'm afraid, I'm angry, I'm ashamed, and I don't want to hide it anymore. This is how you start to face the shadow, by refusing to lie to yourself any longer. You don't fix the shadow, you don't conquer it, you integrate it. You say, I see you, I hear you, you belong. Facing the shadow isn't an intellectual exercise. You can't outthink it. You can't analyze your way to wholeness. You have to feel it. You have to sit in the discomfort of your contradictions. You have to open the box you've kept locked for years and look at what's inside. Not with judgment, but with curiosity. This is where tools like shadow journaling come in. It's not complicated. You take a notebook and ask yourself, what am I afraid to feel? What do I hate in other people? What part of myself do I never want others to see? You let yourself write without censoring, You let the truth come out, even if it's messy, dark, or ugly, especially then. Another way the shadow reveals itself is through projections, the things that irrationally trigger you in others. When you find yourself overreacting to someone else's behavior, it's often a clue. You might say, "I can't stand arrogant people," but what you're really saying is, "I've denied my own desire to be seen, to be confident, to take up space." You might hate weakness in others, but maybe you've spent your whole life running from your own vulnerability. You might resent people who ask for help, because you were raised to believe that needing others is shameful. The qualities you suppress in yourself will always find a way to show up in the people around you, until you reclaim them. Therapy can be a powerful space for this kind of work, not because a therapist has all the answers, but because the right one will hold up a mirror without flinching. They'll help you explore the parts of yourself you've been avoiding. They'll ask the questions you've never dared to ask, and they'll remind you that your shadow doesn't make you unlovable, it makes you human. That doesn't mean you act out every dark impulse. It means you understand where it comes from, what it needs, and how to transform it. It's important to understand that shadow work isn't about becoming better in a moral sense. It's not about fixing yourself to be more acceptable. It's about becoming whole. You were never meant to be all light. You were meant to be complete, light and dark, fierce and gentle, wounded and wise. True healing doesn't happen when you scrub yourself clean. It happens when you accept the dirt as part of your story, as part of your truth. The parts of you that are hardest to love are the ones that need it the most, and ironically, the more you accept them, the less power they have to control you. Jung said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." This isn't just a poetic idea, it's reality. You can't wake up without discomfort. You can't reclaim your lost parts without grieving the years you spent pretending. Facing the shadow will hurt, it will humble you, it will burn away the stories you told yourself to survive. But on the other side is clarity, freedom, and a kind of self-respect that can't be faked. Imagine for a moment a dream. You're walking through a dark forest, you hear something moving behind you. Breathing, footsteps, getting closer. You start to run, you trip, you hide, you look back and see a shadowy figure approaching. You're terrified, you scream, and then in a flash you turn and face it. You step toward the figure, and as it steps into the moonlight you realize it's you. A younger version, a wounded version, a part of yourself you forgot existed, and they're not here to hurt you, they're here to be held. That image of turning toward the shadow in a dream and realizing it's yourself captures the essence of this work. The demon isn't separate. The fear isn't an enemy. It's a piece of you that was left behind. When you integrate it, you don't become darker, you become deeper. You gain access to your full emotional range. You become more grounded, more real, more resilient. You stop pretending. You stop overcompensating. You move through life not as a fragmented actor, but as a whole, conscious being. But here's the hard truth. Most people will never do this work. Not because they're incapable, but because they're afraid. Afraid of what they'll find. Afraid that if they stop pretending, the world will reject them. Afraid that if they look too closely, they'll break. But the opposite is true. You don't break by facing yourself. You break by running from yourself. Wholeness doesn't destroy you. It restores you, and the parts you fear the most are often the ones with the greatest gifts. This is the paradox of shadow work. The things you've buried aren't just wounds, they're also wells of power. Inside your rage is your boundary, inside your sadness is your sensitivity, inside your shame is your capacity for empathy, inside your fear is the key to your courage, but none of this is available to you until you face it, until you make a choice. I will no longer run. I will meet myself in the dark, and I will walk myself back into the light. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to be willing. Willing to sit with discomfort. Willing to be honest. Willing to stop blaming others and start looking inward. That's where the real transformation happens. not in becoming someone else, but in remembering who you really are underneath the mask. Because your shadow doesn't make you broken, it makes you real. And when you stop fighting it, you finally become free. There comes a moment, after the mask has cracked, after the shadow has been seen, after the unconscious has been heard, when something new begins to take shape. Not a better version of who you were, not a cleaned up, polished identity made to impress the world, something deeper, something real. This is what Carl Jung called individuation, the lifelong process of becoming your true, whole, integrated self. Individuation is not self-improvement. It's not about becoming more productive or more successful or more admired. It's about becoming yourself, not the self you were trained to be, not the self others expect you to be, but the self that was hidden underneath it all. The one that existed before the world told you who you should be. The one that has been quietly waiting beneath the shame, the fear, the persona, the projection, waiting for you to stop performing and finally come home. This journey isn't easy. It's not a linear path. It's not a set of steps you can check off like a to-do list. It's messy. It's painful. It will ask everything of you. You'll lose parts of yourself you thought were essential. You'll grieve the masks you used to rely on. You'll feel like you're falling apart, and in a way, you are. But that's what transformation requires. You were never meant to stay the same. You were meant to evolve, to shed old skins, to die to your false selves so that something true can be born. The world will try to pull you in the opposite direction, toward conformity, toward control, toward staying small and quiet and digestible. Society isn't built to support individuation, it's built to reward obedience. To be your true self in a world that profits from your insecurity is a rebellious act, but the alternative is far worse. Because if you don't take this path, you'll live someone else's life. You'll succeed at things that don't matter. You'll accumulate accolades that leave you empty. And you'll grow old wondering why you never felt like you were really you. To walk the path of individuation, you must sit with your discomfort. Let it speak. Let it teach you. Every emotion you resist has a message. Every trigger you experience is a doorway. Instead of avoiding them, track them. Ask yourself, why did that moment shake me? Why did their words sting? Why did I shrink when I wanted to speak? Your reactions are not random, they are maps, clues pointing to parts of yourself you've disowned. Follow your fear. It knows the way, because fear guards the gate to your potential. It always has. You'll know you're on the path when things begin to feel both terrifying and true. When you say the thing you were scared to say, and feel more alive than ever. When you finally rest, not because you've earned it, but because you remember you're already enough. When you stop performing and start expressing. When you stop seeking permission and start listening to your inner voice. That's the self emerging. That's individuation unfolding. Jung described this as a return to the center, a movement inward, a reconnection with the deep self, not the ego, not the image, but the core of your being, the part of you that isn't swayed by trends or fears or expectations, the part that knows. And when you begin to live from that place, everything changes. Your relationships shift, your work transforms, even your pain takes on new meaning. You stop asking, how can I fix myself? And start asking, what wants to come through me? The journey of individuation is sacred. It's not just about healing. It's about becoming someone who knows who they are and what they stand for, someone who can hold their light and their dark without shame, someone who doesn't need to fit in because they finally belong to themselves. It's the privilege of a lifetime. And Jung said exactly that. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But here's what's often misunderstood. Individuation isn't about becoming special. It's not about being the most unique, interesting, or enlightened person in the room. It's about being authentic, about aligning your outer life with your inner truth. And truth isn't flashy. It's quiet, steady, grounded. It's found in the little choices. Saying no when you used to say yes, telling the truth when it's easier to lie, staying when you want to run, or leaving when it's time to go. This kind of transformation often happens slowly. You don't wake up one day fully individuated. You inch toward it with every honest conversation, every conscious choice, every time you feel the pull to betray yourself and decide not to. The more you do this, the more solid you become, the more whole. And the more whole you are, the less life controls you, because you're no longer at war with yourself. You've made peace with the parts you once rejected. You've integrated the shadow. You've taken back the power you once gave away. This journey is not about arriving. There's no final version of you waiting at the end of the road. There's only the unfolding, the becoming, the deepening, the willingness to meet yourself again and again, in new roles, new challenges, new stages of life, and say, I'm still here, I'm still listening, I'm still becoming. And as you walk this path, you begin to see your shadow differently, not as something to fear, but as a story left unfinished. A younger version of you, still waiting to be heard, a wound waiting to become wisdom, a part of your soul asking not to be erased, but rewritten. And when you answer that call, when you choose to face what you've hidden, you stop being a victim of your past. You become the author of your life. The shadow is not your enemy. It's your unlived potential, your buried creativity, your locked up vitality, and individuation is the process of setting it free, not by force, but by love, by truth, by presence. So if you're feeling lost, confused, broken, good, it means you're paying attention. It means the old version of you is crumbling. Let it fall apart. Because what's waiting on the other side isn't a perfect version of you. It's the real you, the one you were always meant to become. And that truly is the work of a lifetime.